Eugenie Grandet, Honore de Balzac. Honoré de Balzac's Eugenie Grandet, 1833, is the human comedy's provincial panel, a double tragedy in which a cooper's avarice digests a town and a daughter's absolute love is educated by gold into distrust of feeling. Père Grandet crouches, springs, and swallows Louis like the tiger boa he is. Eugenie flings her rare coins into the ocean of affection for a cousin who sells her for an Aubryan title, and Saumur's cold houses state the diagnosis before any character speaks. Abstract. Eugenie Grandet, 1833, is Honoré de Balzac's provincial study of gold's frigid influence upon a hallowed life. Père Grandet's tiger and boa avarice in Saumur, Eugenie's saintly passion for a cousin who sells her for an Aubryan title, cold houses whose window glances already diagnose the soul. The wormly text restores the novel's 14 movements entire. The houses of Saumur file the street, and the cooper before a plot exists. The crotchet, de Grassin's war prices the heiress. The birthday, Knock delivers 3 tons of Paris and a suicide letter. The night of duel counting as father selling gold while daughter flings hers. The vintage triumph and the barrel of gold dinner convert fraternal honor into funds. The gift of Portugueses buys an Indies venture. 7 years of waiting run. Parallel to the Paris liquidation, New Year's audit imprisons the giver. Crutchet's inventory threat purchases forgiveness. 17 millions inherit one question. Charles's letter files the moral bankruptcy, and the rich widow marries as virgin, pays the debts, and ends ironically called Mademoiselle. Save the cat. Applied. What is it? A miser's daughter in Saumur gives her life's gold to a ruined Parisian cousin. Waits 7 years. Receives his letter preferring a titled bride and the doctrine that love and marriage is a delusion. Pays his father's debts and marries the local president as a virgin, ending rich, charitable, and taught by money to distrust feeling. The irony is structural. Every gift meant to save. Birthday Louis, Portugueses, dressing case vows, Bonfons' receipts, deepens the frigid lesson. Every fortune, Grandet's funds, Charles's Indies, Eugenie's 17 millions, isolates the heart. The daughter's graduation into wealth and her burial into widowhood are the same event priced twice. The mental picture is immediate and durable. A steep pebbled street where it rains Louis, one tallow candle in a gray hall, a line of light thin as a saber blade on rotten stairs. Coins spread before dying eyes. It warms me. A crucifix seized at the lips. A Sèvres sugar bowl, keeping a cousin's memory. The audience and cost are plain. A social medical novel for adult readers whose pleasure is neither plot nor sentiment but diagnosis. Houses read as physiognomy, souls filed by faction and frank, and the price is consolation refused. No restored love, no heir, no happiness except in heaven, with a reader warned that consciences and provinces are held in the light. The title itself passes the test in the strongest way. Eugenie Grandet names the heiress the market made, and the ending's ironic Mademoiselle keeps the diminution, created to be supremely wife and mother, left neither husband nor child nor family. Same thing, only different. Shelf label. French realist novel / human comedy provincial scene / heiress and miser tragedy. Against Snyder's 10 mechanical types, Eugenie Grandet sits at the intersection of 3. Its backbone is institutionalized. Notaries, the funds, marriage contracts, parish casuistry, and 2 court factions form the establishment whose rules price every soul, and the instrument that enforces it, Grandet, is never reformed, only inherited. Its engine is buddy love inverted into a courtship triangle with no buddy at all. Crooketine and Grassin's suitors pursue the heiress's factions. Charles pursues her fortune as a loan, and the one pursuit that was pure, hers, is rewarded with abandonment, self-love on every side of the ledger. And its spine is rites of passage, the story of a woman's initiation, from cloistered ignorance through ocean of affection gift, 7 years vocation, and New Year's punishment to virgin marriage and distrust of feeling. The Bildungsroman reissued as an invoice. This same thing is the marriage market heiress and the repentant or ruined dandy. The different is Balzac's medical method. houses as physiognomy before character, gold cuddled like a mistress, deathbed audit in heaven, virgin marriage as the one undiscounted capital, and the reversal that makes it new. The rite of passage ends not in wisdom's reward, but in the diagnosis' frigid influence, a coda that refuses to restore what the tuition cost. Snyder's caveat holds. The familiar machinery, small town, two suitors, rich father, poor cousin, is kept as spine. The payload, that the graduate's diploma is written over her own heart, is the difference. Twin in temper to pair Goriot's parental sacrifice, colder climate than Parisian cousin bed, less consoling than English provincial comedy. The immutable laws of screenplay physics. Eugenie Grandet obeys the covenant of the arc as monetary pathology. Eugenie arcs from cloistered ignorance through ocean of affection gift to distrustful saint. Grandet arcs only into pure metal. Charles arcs from virgin grief to slave trade and Aubryon. Madame arcs to heaven's sole happiness. And the argument is carried by who changes and who merely continues. Nanon, the Cruchets, and Saumur itself are static as furniture, which is precisely their function. Save the Cat sinks us early to Eugenie's cream and coffee conspiracy and her virgin comprehension of Charles's cry. Pathos for the girl before the ledger closes. Pope in the Pool is native Balzac. Exposition is the entertainment. Tufa Portco share, Portuguese valuations, funds at 70, Sanchez on virgin marriage. The novel breaks laying pipe productively. The catalyst, birthday knock, 3 tons of Paris, suicide letter, arrives only after 2 chapters of street, house, and faction, because Balzac is setting the scientific vocabulary first. What reads as pipe, the ouvroir counters, the barometers flies, the marriage dozen custom, is already the specimen tray. Against double mumbo-jumbo, the book runs 2 systems. Naturalist social medicine, physiognomy, fiscal arithmetic, the creditor's meteorology, and providential imagery. Lamb without spot, the virgin before and after conception, no happiness except in heaven. But it earns the pair by keeping both diagnostic. The miracles are compound interest, and the one moment the systems fuse. The crucifix, seized as Lewis, is the novel's whole thesis in a gesture. And the ending breaks finale on purpose. Expected romantic rescue denied twice over. Charles's letter, then Bonfon's contract. The dark night prolonged into widowhood and an ironic mademoiselle, so that the question, was Eugenie's saintliness victory or symptom, remains standing when the book closes. Where Trollope anatomizes preferment as visiting list, Balzac anatomizes love as the life and death of money. Executive summary. Eugenie Grandet is the provincial founding panel of Balzac's human comedy, a chronicle that runs from a pebbled street where it rains Lewis to a widow's fireside where the calendar of her father's economy still governs the hearth, and in the process invents the modern novel of money as family physiology, scandal as method, gold as ordeal, marriage as liquidation. The narrative is built on a single wager, that avarice can be portrayed without caricature, as a passion as absolute and as productive as any other, and the whole structure stages and tests that wager. A street read as physiognomy, 2 factions bidding for one heiress, a suicide letter dropped into a Loto night, a night of dual counting, 7 years of waiting audited against a Paris liquidation, and an ending that pays every debt except love. The book's significance is double. As narrative art, it perfects the machinery announced by Père Goriot. Environment as protagonist. The house is the miser's instrument. Money counted on every page to the horror of critics who called Balzac an auctioneer and types before actions. Tiger Boa, Quint's wife, grenadier's servant, dandy turned slave trader, dissected with comic ferocity rather than sociological gloom. As argument, it is the Restoration's sharpest anatomy of the family under capitalism in its provincial form. Dowries and inventories as the physiology of affection. Misery begetting equality only to revoke it. Frigid influence as the last diagnosis, taught to a woman who is all feeling. The costs are equally real. Charles's Indies career summarized at dossier distance. The faction's machinery visible at the joints, a moral clarity about the slave trade almost too cleanly damning, and they are weighed in the critical evaluation that follows the body. This summary is written for the reader who wants the novel's argument and its art at once. The movement-by-movement forensic reading that shows how the experiment concludes, roughly a fifth of the source per movement, in Balzac's own register. The Save the Cat analysis of its structural DNA, the deep dive into characters, themes, and symbols that the body can only gesture at, and a critical evaluation that weighs intent against execution without flattery. For such a reader, the recommendation is direct. Read the body as Saumur tells it. Not as the story of a good daughter rewarded, but as the ledger of a town that could not metabolize absolute love, kept by a doctor who counts everything and forgives nothing but waste. Central thesis. Gold will educate a hallowed life more thoroughly than any confessor. Père Grandet's avarice and Charles's worldly return are complementary instruments, and the woman who is all feeling learns distrust of feelings. An ending without restored love, Balzac insists, because money has cast its frigid influence from Saumur's cold houses to the widow's last speech to Nanon. Foundational observations. Houses as diagnosis. Provincial melancholy. Cloister. Moor. Ruin. Cold glance. States the novel before the Cooper is named. The street is a ledger of French time, Protestant nails, leaguer curses, forgotten noblesse de cloches. Weather is commerce. It rains Lewis. And Saturday surveillance holds every conscience in the light. When Eugenie's story begins, the instrument that will measure it is already calibrated. Money as physiology, tiger/boa digestion of Lewis, gold that swarms, sweats, multiplies, crucifix seized as specie. Avarice is rendered not as moral epithet, but as bodily function. The one moves with the passions, deathbed eyes kindle at metal, and the miser's creed, I don't know, I cannot, I will not, I will see about it, is four algebraic formulas for one appetite. Misery begets equality. Charles is reachable only when ruined. Grief draws the households in rapport, and love becomes possible when gold's hierarchy collapses, and unreachable again when fortune returns with worldliness. The axiom carries the novel's cruelest symmetry. The same fall that opens Eugenie's chance closes it. Dual counting. Father sells gold the night the daughter flings hers into affection. Residential duplex of avarice and love, both fortunes counted in one chapter, one to convert into paper, one to spend on a cousin's voyage. Balzac repeats the device at every scale. Vintage against vow. Inventory against forgiveness. 19 millions against 17. Frigid influence. 17 millions. Virgin marriage. Paid debts. Ironic mademoiselle. Saintliness under gold's tuition. The last sentence diagnosis teaches distrust of feeling to a woman who is all feeling, fulfilling the cold houses of page 1 and refusing the consolatory reunion the genre promised. Significance and recommendation. Eugenie Grandet is essential reading both as the provincial founding panel of the human comedy and as the 19th century's most compact anatomy of the family under money. The book that made a provincial street the matter of serious sociology and stated, decades before it became doctrine, that every relationship passes through a packet. It should be read by anyone interested in how fiction invented the environment as protagonist, by students of realism, of Restoration France, and of the recurring character universe. Nucingen's ball, Rodwin's failures, de Grassin's deputyship all connect outward, and by readers of education plots who want the genre's invoice, not its concessions. Recommended approach. Read the 14 movements as conduct of the experiment in Balzac's register, then the deep dive and critical evaluation for structure and costs, and return to the four centers on which everything turns: the cold houses of the opening, the night of dual counting, the deathbed seizure of the crucifix, and the frigid influence coda. Read beside Père Goriot for the Parisian twin of paternal sacrifice, beside Cousin Bet for the consuming will turn predatory, beside Lost Illusions for the provincial arriving in Paris that Charles's art parodies, and for contrast of national temper, Trollope's airs comedies. The Wormley text supplies the provincial laboratory entire. This summary follows it in Balzac's register. doctor of social medicine, not moralist with sugar plums. Dedication. Opening image. To Maria, whose portrait is the noblest ornament of this work, Balzac lays a branch of sacred box, taken from an unknown tree, sanctified by religion, kept fresh by pious hands to bless the house. The dedication is not a Parisian vanity plate, but a provincial rite. The novel that follows will open a house where gold is kissed in secret and a daughter's life is spent as alms. Sacred box on the threshold. Saumur's cold glance behind the window casing. The doctor of social medicine signs simply, de Balzac, and enters the dwelling whose physiognomy is melancholy itself. Quote, "May your name, that of one whose portrait is the noblest ornament of this work, lie on its opening pages like a branch of sacred box, taken from an unknown tree, but sanctified by religion, and kept ever fresh and green by pious hands to bless the house." Houses of Saumur. Theme stated/setup. There are houses in certain provincial towns whose aspect inspires melancholy akin to cloisters, moorlands, or ruins. Silence within, barrenness, the skeleton of life, so stagnant a stranger might think them uninhabited, until the pale, cold glance of a motionless person peers beyond the window casing at an unaccustomed step. Such is the physiognomy of a dwelling in Saumur at the end of the steep street leading to the chateau. Hot in summer, cold in winter, remarkable for its pebbled resonance, its tortuous roadway, its old-town houses overtopped by ramparts. 3 centuries of oak beams carved into fantastic figures, slate lines on frail walls, rotting shingles, blackened windowsills bearing a working woman's heartsease, doors studded with nails where Protestants attested faith and Leaguers cursed Henry IV, and bourgeois carved forgotten noblesse de cloches. The whole history of France is there. Below, the ouvrière of the forefathers keeps its naive simplicity. Doors opening in 2 halves, the upper fastened back within the room, the lower swinging continually on its spring bell. No show window, no glass. A breast-high counterwall closed by solid shutters taken down every morning and put up every evening, where samples alone declare the business. Tubs of codfish and salt, bundles of sailcloth, copper wire hanging from the joists, iron hoops for casks ranged along the wall. A neat girl glowing with youth drops her knitting and calls her father, who sells what you want phlegmatically, civilly, or arrogantly according to his individual character, whether the matter be 2 sous or 20,000 francs worth. Here a cooper sits in his doorway, twirling his thumbs, owning to appearance nothing more than a few miserable boat ribs and 2 bundles of laths, while below in the port his teeming woodyard supplies all the coopered trade of Anjou. He knows to a plank how many casks a good vintage wants, and a single morning has seen puncheons worth 11 francs drop to 6. Atmospheric vicissitudes control commercial life. A perpetual duel goes on between the heavens and terrestrial interests. The barometer smooths, saddens, or makes merry every countenance in turn, and from end to end of the old Grand Rue the words pass from door to door. Here's golden weather. It rains Louis. On Saturdays after midday, not 1 sou's worth of merchandise can be bought. Each trader keeps his vineyard, and the 10 hours of pleasure are spent in observations, criticisms, and continual spying. A housewife cannot buy a partridge, but the neighbors ask the husband if it were cooked to a turn. A young girl never puts her head near a window, but idling groups remark it. Consciences are held in the light, and houses dark, silent, impenetrable as they seem hide no mysteries. Balzac begins not with a character, but with a street that is already a ledger of French time. Architecture as social medicine's first specimen. Monsieur Grandet, formerly cooper, then mayor under the Republic who harvested pickings and quitted Napoleon's supersession without regret, stands as Saumur's tiger and boa constrictor. Crouch, watch, spring, swallow a mass of Louis, rest like a snake in digestion, impassible, methodical, cold. No one sees him pass without admiration mingled with respect and fear. Every man in Saumur has felt the rending of those polished steel claws. Maitre Cruchot procures money for domains at 11%. Monsieur de Grassin's discounts bills at frightful deductions, Few days pass without Grandet's name of markets or evening Boston. The biography explains the fear. In 1789, the master cooper, able to read, write, and cipher, married the wood merchant's daughter and carried 2,000 louis to the district, where 200 double louis given to the surly Republican presiding over the sales obtained for a song, legally if not legitimately. One of the finest vineyards in the arrondissement, an old abbey, and several farms. Saumur called him bold, a Republican, a patriot with a mind open to all the new ideas. In point of fact, it was open only to vineyards. Mayor under the consulate, he governed wisely and harvested still better pickings. Napoleon's supersession cost him nothing, for the fine roads he constructed ran to his own property. His taxes sat advantageously assessed, and his vineyards became the head of the country, while the abbey's windows and arches, walled up for economy, were preserved by the very measure meant to destroy them. His speech is 4 sentences precise as algebraic formulas. I don't know. I cannot. I will not. I will see about it. And he never said yes or no, never committed himself to writing. When an opponent avows the secret of his purposes confident of assent, the answer comes, I can decide nothing without consulting my wife. The wife he had reduced to helpless slavery being a useful screen in business. 5 feet high, square-built, calves 12 inches in circumference, face round, tanned, pitted by the smallpox, eyes with that calm, devouring expression attributed to the basilisk, nose thick at the end bearing a vein when the common people rightly said was full of malice. The whole countenance shows dangerous cunning, integrity without warmth. The egotism of man long used to concentrate every feeling upon the enjoyments of avarice and upon the only human being anything to him, his daughter and sole heiress. His dress has not varied since 1791. His gloves, thick as a gendarme's, last 20 months, laid methodically on the brim of his Quaker's hat in one particular spot. The best reckoners of 1816 put his landed property near 4 millions. Yearly 100,000 franc harvest from 1793 to 1817 imply cash equal to the estate. Knowing people say Père Grandet must have 5 or 6 millions, and Cruchot or de Grassin's answer they have never been able to find out the amount. When Parisians mention Rothschild or Lafitte, Saumur asks if he is as rich as Monsieur Grandet. Visible estate. Vineyards house, the Freudfond Marquis swallowed whole in 1811 for gold under Crooketine engineering. Park, mansion, farms, streams, ponds, forest worth about 3 millions, paid under discount to the young Marquis's astonishment and Nonsurland's echo. Then thinning woods and selling poplars to refill coffers. Types before actions. The miser as provincial physiology, not cartoon. Madame Grandet brings 3 inheritances. Her own, old Monsieur de la Bruyère's, Madame Genelit's. Amounts unknown because the dead hoarded for the pleasure of secretly looking at gold. The grandfather called investment an extravagance and thought sight of Louis better interest than funds. Eugenie is already talked of through a circumference of 50 miles and in conveyances from Angers to Blois. Heiress, future alliance, object of Crooketine and Grassinist war. Nanon, sole servant, bakes Saturday bread, tenants supply vegetables, fruits are sold. Firewood comes from hedgerows and rotten sheds. The chapter's method is Balzac's human comedy in miniature. Street as history, house as cloister, cooper as boa, heiress as public stake, servant as domestic machinery. Gold is not yet kissed on stage. Its rumor already governs Saumur's compliments and silences. Provincial melancholy. Houses whose aspect is cloister, moor, ruin. Saumur's steep street as the novel's opening physiognomy of stagnant life and cold glances. Tiger and boa. Grandet's commercial method. Crouch, spring, swallow Louis, digest impassibly. Money is animal physiology, not metaphor for decoration. Freudfond gullet. The Marquis swallowed whole in gold. Crooketine's engineering a 3 million bite that echoes from Nantes to Orleans. Quote, there are houses in certain provincial towns whose aspect inspires melancholy, akin to that called forth by somber cloisters, dreary moorlands, or the desolation of ruins. Within these houses there is, perhaps, the silence of the cloister, the barrenness of moors, the skeleton of ruins. Life and movement are so stagnant there that a stranger might think them uninhabited, were it not that he encounters suddenly the pale, cold glance of a motionless person, whose half-monastic face peers beyond the window casing at the sound of an unaccustomed step. Quote, "Financially speaking, Monsieur Grandet was something between a tiger and a boa constrictor. He could crouch and lie low, watch his prey a long while, spring upon it, open his jaws, swallow a mass of Lewis, and then rest tranquilly like a snake in process of digestion. Impassible, methodical, and cold. Good, le Père Grandet? Le Père Grandet must have at least 5 or 6 millions. You are cleverer than I am. I have never been able to find out the amount," answered Monsieur Cruchot or Monsieur de Grassins, when either chanced to overhear the remark. 2. The Cruchots and de Grassins. Set up. It is now easy to understand the house of Monsieur Grandet, cold, silent, pallid dwelling above the town, sheltered by rampart ruins. Poor cochere of lawyer tufa is soft enough to last hardly 2 centuries. Irregular holes eaten by weather-give vermiculated French stonework to archen walls. A knocker like a huge note of exclamation. The antique jackmart whose burlesque figure usage has effaced. Within, 1 candle sufficient for ordinary occasions. Tapestry chairs of La Fontaine's fables so faded and darned that only those who know the writer guess the subjects. Closets at 4 corners. Sandbags against north wind that still whistles. Nanan's wolf dog with laryngitic bark recognizing only her. The hall below is antechamber, salon, office, boudoir, and dining room at once. Theater of domestic life, where the neighborhood barber comes twice a year and the farmers, the curé, the underprefect, and the miller's boy come on business. Gray panels with ancient moldings. An old brass clock inlaid with arabesques above the ill-cut white stone chimney-piece. A greenish mirror whose beveled edges show the thickness of the glass around a Gothic frame in damascene steel. Copper-gilt candelabra serving double duty, their side branches taken off to make a candlestick for the 1 candle sufficient for ordinary occasions. The oval barometer above the marquetry card table has been so licentiously disported upon by flies that its gilding is problematical. Pastel portraits of old Monsieur de la Bertellière as a lieutenant of the French Guard and Madame Gentelet as a shepherdess hang opposite. Red groated Tours curtains are held back by silken cords with ecclesiastical tassels. Luxurious decoration little in keeping with the master's habits. Included in the purchase of the house. By the window nearest the door stands Madame Grandet's straw chair raised on casters. Their mother and daughter have flowed peacefully onward for 15 years. Taking winter station by the chimney on the 1st of November. The fire lit then and extinguished the 31st of March without regard to chills, the cold mornings borne by what embers Nanan contrives to save in a foot warmer. The house is not backdrop. It is the miser's instrument, cold as policy, darkness as economy, yellow Anjou candle as magnificence undetected when a Parisian later brings wax. La Grande Nanan. Face that would have been admired on a grenadier, repulsive at 22 to almost every employer, found in Grandet the master who valued strength over beauty. Sexagenarian slavery won her a sum that seemed gigantic to jealous servants who never counted the years. She bakes, milks, sweeps, chains the dog, understands the beasts. Grandet espied her when she came to Saumur full of the robust courage that shrinks from no labor, rejected from door to door. A good judge of corporeal strength in his trade, he guessed the work to be got from a female creature shaped like a Hercules, firm on her feet as an oak 60 years old on its roots, with the hands of a cartman and an honesty as sound as her unblemished virtue. Neither the warts on her martial visage nor the sinewy arms dismayed the cooper, then still of an age when the heart shudders. He fed, shod, and clothed her, ruled and worked her with feudal authority. In the famous year 1811, he made her his old watch, first present of 20 years, and turned over his worn-out shoes as a quarterly benefit. Necessity had made her so niggardly that he grew to love her as we love a dog, and she let him fasten a spike collar round her throat whose spikes no longer pricked. His compassion, poor Nanan, uttered from time to time, formed a chain of friendship, nothing ever parted, each exclamation adding a link. And this cruel pity, recalling 1,000 pleasures to the miser's heart, was for the old spinster the sum total of happiness. Madame Grandet completes the clinic. Dry, thin, yellow as a quince. One of those women born to be downtrodden, yet an excellent woman, a true La Bertellière, whose angelic sweetness and the resignation of an insect tortured by children made her universally pitied and respected. She brought her husband more than 300,000 francs and never asked one penny, never remarked on the deeds Maître Crotchet brought for signature. A foolish secret pride, a nobility of soul perpetually misunderstood and wounded. Her husband gives her 6 francs at a time, lends back several crowns of her 5 louis of pin money over the winter, and thinks himself generous. Philosophers who meet the like of Nanon, of Madame Grandet, of Eugenie have surely a right to say that irony is at the bottom of the ways of Providence. Madame and Mademoiselle Grandet take charge of family linen with working women's conscientiousness. If Eugenie would embroider a collar for her mother, she must steal sleep and deceive her father. Chilly April and October mornings are borne by what Nanon saves. Conjugal slavery speaks in Madame's timid glance. The wife feigns dead when resistance is impossible. Balzac's provincial household is a clinic. 3 women, 1 miser, 1 servant whose loyalty is capital earned in muscle. The birthday evening gathers the war. Croquetines and grassinists, 6 antagonists armed at all points, prepare to surpass each other in testimonials of friendship. Saumur has seen Madame and Mademoiselle Grandet with Nanon at parish mass. Everyone remembers Eugenie's anniversary. Abbé Crotchet, President C. de Bonfons. Maître Crotchet arrived before the de Grassins with greenhouse bouquets. The president's stems are wound in white satin ribbon with gold fringe. Morning custom. Père Grandet at Eugenie's bedside with his paternal gift. For 13 years, a curious gold piece. Solemn as sacrament. Madame de Grassins brings Adolphe, tall, blonde, pale, slight. 8 or 10,000 francs over allowance studying law in Paris. Who kisses Eugenie and offers a workbox. He nearly blurts meeting cousin Grandet at Monsieur Nucingen's ball until his mother treads his toes. Goose, the pheasant of tradesmen, is eaten. Nanon prophesies marriage this year. Madame sees no one suitable in Saumur. The stakes have a name older than the factions. The marriage dozen, sacredly preserved in central France. 12 pieces, 12 dozen, or 1,200 according to means. Issoudun still tells of an heiress's dozen containing 144 Portugueses, and Pope Clement VII gave Catherine de' Medici a dozen of antique metals priceless in value. Grandet loves to see his daughter amass her 100 crowns of birthday revenue, putting his money from one strongbox to another, training the parsimony of his heiress, and demands account of the treasure. It is to be your marriage dozen. At Lodo, he contemplates the pink feathers of Madame de Grassins, the martial head of the banker, the faces of Adolphe, president, abbé, and notary, saying inwardly, "They are all after my money. Neither the one nor the other shall have my daughter, but they are useful as harpoons to fish with." At the far embrasure, the abbé whispers that those people throw money out of windows, and receives the answer that settles Saumur's ethics. What does that matter if it gets into my cellar? The scene is a melancholy comedy. Family gaiety in the gray room dimly lighted by 2 tallow candles. Laughter sincere only upon the lips of Eugenie and her mother. Triviality mingled with important interests. A young girl lured and trapped by proofs of friendship of which she is the dupe. The modern God, the only God in whom faith is preserved, money, manifested in a single countenance. While the 3 pure, simple hearts know nothing of the fortune they live beside, and neither value nor despise money because they are accustomed to do without it. Lodo and Boston proceed under the 1-candle regime until a knock that Monsieur de Grassins finds evil-intentioned. The chapter has built the trap of provincial courtship. 2 parties, 1 heiress, a house that spends nothing before the Parisian luggage of 3 tons announces a new predator or a new prey. House of Monsieur Grandet, cold, silent, pallid dwelling of tufa and rampart shelter. The miser's architecture as moral climate. Croquetines/Grassinists. Two Saumur factions courting Eugenie. Friendship as armed testament. Bouquets as siege engines. 13 years gold. Grandet's birthday sacrament. One curious piece per year. Paternal love as numismatic ritual. Quote, "It is now easy to understand the full meaning of the term. The house of Monsieur Grandet, that cold, silent, pallid dwelling, standing above the town and sheltered by the ruins of the ramparts." Quote, "In the morning, Monsieur Grandet, following his usual custom on the days that commemorated the birth and the fate of Eugenie, went to her bedside and solemnly presented her with his paternal gift, which for the last 13 years had consisted regularly of a curious gold piece." 3. Birthday and Charles. Catalyst. Nanon takes a candle. Grandet follows. Madame cries his name in sudden fear. De Grassins proposes all go. The knock strikes him as evil-intentioned. The figure is a young man of 22. Charles Grandet, son of Monsieur Grandet of Paris, arrived by diligence of the Grand Bureau that is never late, luggage weighing nearly 3 tons. The notary pulls out a watch 2 inches thick like a Dutch man of war. 9 o'clock precisely. Grandet turns roughly at the threshold. "Madame Grandet, go back to your loto. Leave me to speak with Monsieur," and pulls the door quickly to, the excited players returning to their seats but not to their game. The newcomers fall into this assembly can only be likened to that of a snail into a beehive, or the introduction of a peacock into some village poultry yard. He applies an eyeglass to examine table and persons, ogles Madame de Grassins with impertinence, presents the singular contrast of Parisian dandyism to provincials who study him with sarcastic intent. The 3 Cruchets explain the sarcasm. All take snuff, have long ceased to repress the habit of sniveling or to remove the brown blotches strewn over dingy shirt frills. Their flabby cravats twist into ropes. Their enormous store of linen, washed once in 6 months and kept in closet depths, carries time's grimy stains. There is perfect unison of ill grace and senility, faces as faded as their threadbare coats. When the Parisian lifts his eyeglass to examine the joists, the woodwork, and the specks the flies have left to punctuate the moniteur, the loto players lift their noses and gaze with the curiosity they might feel about a giraffe. At 22, Balzac notes, 90 of 100 still conduct themselves childishly. Adolphe's suppressed Nucingen anecdote blooms. The cousin is very good-looking. Grandet folds a letter carefully into waistcoat pocket, looks at his nephew with humble, timid air that hides calculations, asks if he has warmed himself, already forgets the women. Despotism is household weather. He has got a tongue. When Eugenie offers the stranger something, sugar for eau sucrée becomes a crisis. Where will you get sugar? Are you crazy? Father sees everything. The letter, Guillaume Grandet to his elder brother, is Balzac's Paris pathology dropped into Saumur's loto night. When the brother holds these pages, the writer will be no longer living. He cannot survive the disgrace of bankruptcy. He has waited on the gulf's edge. Double bankruptcies of broker and of Rodwin the notary have carried off last resources. Nearly 4 millions owed, assets not more than 25%. Wines suffer from Anjou's abundant vintage. In 3 days Paris will cry that Monsieur Grandet was a knave, and an honest man will lie in a winding sheet of infamy. He writes with dry eyes, with my blood, with my tears. No greater anguish could I put into this letter, for then I should weep, bleed, die, suffer no more. Now I suffer and look at death with dry eyes. The curses of our children are horrible. They can appeal against ours, but theirs are irrevocable. Why did I yield to love? Why did I marry the natural daughter of a great lord? Charles has no family on his mother's side. The suppliant hands are clasped and held up to view. Behold them. The charge is precise. Be a father to him, but a good father. Do not tear him all at once from his idle life. It would kill him. Work, labor, which saved us both, may give him back the fortune of which I have deprived him. If he listens to his father's voice reaching him from the grave, he will go to the Indies. The signature is Victor and Guillaume Grandet. written while the assignment is being prepared. The accounts ordered to show that the disaster comes neither from a faulty life nor from dishonesty. He has stained his son's name and lost the mother's fortune. They parted tenderly. Charles does not know the last beatings of the heart were spent in farewell. Will the child someday curse him? Elder brother owes protection. So Charles casts no bitter words upon a grave. The prop of the family whose prosperity was predicted is asked to become guardian of a ruin. Grandet pockets the letter like a bill of exchange. Charles unpacks Paris. Dressing gown of green silk brocaded with gold flowers that Nanon takes for an altar cloth. Toilet set from his mother. Ravishing little desk from Annette. Amiable for him at least. Traveling matrimonially and wearily in Scotland under suspicions requiring a passing sacrifice of happiness. Pretty notepaper for fortnightly letters. As complete a cargo of Parisian frivolities as husbandry of pleasure can assemble. The inventory deserves its catalogue. A complete hunting costume, the finest gun, the best hunting knife in the prettiest sheath in all Paris. Waistcoats of every kind, gray, black, white, scarabaeus-colored, shot with gold, spangled, chined. Every variety of collar and cravat in fashion. 2 Buisson coats. The little whip that helped begin a duel and the handsomely chased pistols that ended. He has taken the coupe of the diligence to himself. A delightful traveling carriage ordered for Baden awaiting Annette in June. Eugenie, to whom such perfection of dress and person was absolutely unknown, thinks she beholds a being descended from seraphic spheres. She inhales the fragrance of his curls, envies the small hands and the freshness of the features, reads the handkerchief embroidered by the great lady. Work done in vacant hours lost to love, as proof of noble qualities. Before she sleeps, she dreams long dreams of her phoenix cousin. Her own conspiracy runs smaller and braver. A wax candle because the cousin cannot bear the tallow smell, cream, and strong Paris coffee. The Sèvres sugar basin brought from Freudfond. What will your father say? Because it is my birthday. Her first little jest, answered by Nanon's loud laugh. Madame de Grassins, exiting, invites Cruchets and plans a dinner with Larsonnières and the beautiful Demoiselle du Haudoy. Provincial counter-siege already forming. She has pronounced the household to Charles. Your uncle a sordid miser who thinks of nothing but his vines. Your aunt a pious soul who can't put 2 ideas together. Your cousin a little fool without education who will spend her life darning towels. And received inwardly the verdict. She is really very nice, this woman. After Bose, the 3 Cruchets and 3 de Grassins apply provincial genius for analysis to the evening's great event. Positions of Grassinists and Crooketines changed. Admirable common sense dictates momentary alliance against a common enemy. They must mutually hinder Eugenie from loving her cousin and the cousin from thinking of Eugenie. Treacherous insinuations, soft-spoken calumnies, slanders full of faint praise, artless denials circling incessantly. On the walk home, the doctrine is fixed between Abbé and banker's wife. An exchange that reaches the liaisons dangerous by way of fables, harmless little coquetries defended as social duty. 100 millions refused as temptation too great for either to withstand. While the president concludes aloud that Monsieur Grandet of Paris sent his son with extremely matrimonial intentions, and the notary answers that the cousin fell among them like a cannonball. The birthday's gold piece and the suicide letter have met in one pocket. Saumur's war has a 3rd army, a dandy who does not yet know he is an orphan and a beggar. Winding sheet of infamy. Guillaume's letter. Bankruptcy as death sentence. For millions owed. Son's ignorance as the last tenderness. 3 tons of Paris. Charles's luggage and eyeglass. Frivolity as cargo against Saumur's 1 candle. Momentary alliance. Crooketines and Grassinists uniting against the cousin. Provincial analysis converting rivalry into shared obstruction. Quote, when you hold this letter within your hands, I shall be no longer living. In the position I now hold, I cannot survive the disgrace of bankruptcy. I have waited on the edge of the gulf until the last moment, hoping to save myself. The end has come, I must sink into it. The double bankruptcies of my broker and of Rogwin, my notary, have carried off my last resources and left me nothing. Quote, The admirable common sense which guided all the actions of these great machinators made each side feel the necessity of a momentary alliance against a common enemy. Must they not mutually hinder Eugenie from loving her cousin, and the cousin from thinking of Eugenie? 4. The letter and the gold. Debate/fun and games. Left alone, Grandet announces the order of the day. Breakfast at 8, midday fruit and white wine, dinner at 5 like Parisians, and postpones the matters that brought Charles until a suitable moment. Let them talk of my riches, he says. Their gossip does not hurt my credit. I have not a penny. I work in my old age like an apprentice whose worldly goods are a bad plane and 2 good arms. You will soon know what a franc costs when you've got to sweat for it. Nanon bolts. Frees the wolf dog whose strangled bark recognizes no one but her. Charles climbs the well of the staircase, yellow, smoke-stained, its worm-eaten steps shaking under the heavy footfall, and fancies himself in a hen roost. Why the devil did my father send me to such a place? 3 doors painted Etruscan red, sunk in dusty walls, their iron bolts ending in a flame pattern. The attic receives him with yellow paper of bouquets well known in dance-houses, a fireplace of ribbed stone whose very look is chilling, chairs with more than the usual 4 angles, a night table capacious enough to hold a small sergeant-at-arms, a tester whose moth-devoured valance shakes as if about to fall. Warming pan and brazier for damp sheets provoke the miser. Do you take my nephew for a lying-in woman? Then a push of Nanon's shoulders and grumbling retreat. The green silk dressing gown makes Nanon cry Holy Virgin. What an altar cloth for the parish church, and wins the promise of it. I'm too good a Christian not to give it to you when I go away. Charles asks what he has come for, and answers himself. Put off serious thought till the morrow, as some Greek idiot said. Opposite Eugenie's door, walled-up entrance to the office. Only way through Grandet's bedchamber. Lattice of iron bars. No one, not even Madame, may enter. There the old Cooper cuddles, cons over, caresses, clutches, clasps gold while Nanon's snoring shakes rafters and the wolf dog yawns. Maps of fruit trees, prophets to a vine, almost to a twig, sheet iron door lately fitted. Alchemist's laboratory, hiding place ingeniously constructed, walls thick, screens sure. Alone, Grandet grieves the legacy. Not 50 francs for a dandy who looked at my barometer as if he meant to make firewood of it, while Nanon goes to sleep tricked out in her altar cloth, dreaming for the first time in her life of flowers, embroidery, and damask, just as Eugenie was dreaming of love. Night works the novel's true metamorphosis. In the pure monotonous life of young girls comes a delicious hour when sun sheds rays into the soul, flowers express thoughts, heart's throbbings send fertilizing warmth to the brain, day of innocent melancholy and dulcet joys. When babes begin to see, they smile. When a young girl first perceives the sentiment of nature, she smiles as she smiled when an infant. If light is the first love of life, is not love a light to the heart? The garden below teaches the same lesson in stone and leaf. A well with its pulley fastened to a bent iron rod, clasped by a vine whose leaves are withered. Logs ranged with as much precision as the books in a library. 8 disjointed steps hidden beneath tall plants like the tomb of a knight buried by his widow in the days of the Crusades. A rotten trellis half fallen from decay, stunted apple trees. 3 graveled walks with square beds held in by box borders, and, at the end, an immense walnut tree drooping its branches almost into the window of the miser's sanctum, where the Venus hair of southern climes droops its thick leaves, lit with the changing colors of a pigeon's breast. Celestial rays of hope illumine the future. The noise of each leaf falling from its twig in the void of that echoing court gives answer to the secret questionings of the young girl. Her portrait is painted with the same double lens, resembling the Venus of Milo yet ennobled by the softer Christian sentiment unknown to the sculptors of antiquity. The masculine yet delicate forehead of the Jupiter of Phidias, gray eyes into which her chaste life carries a flood of light, features whose lines, like those of the horizon traced across tranquil lakes, no expression of pleasure had ever altered. A painter seeking a type of Mary's celestial purity would find there the innate, nobleness that is ignorant of itself. Autumnal sun along the lawyer melts hoarfrost on courtyard plants. Eugenie finds novel charm in aspects lately insignificant. Confused thoughts grow as sunbeams along the wall. Impulse of delight vague and inexplicable wraps the moral being as cloud wraps the body. She stands on the shore of life where young illusions flower and daisies are gathered with delights ere long unknown. Looking in the glass, unconscious as yet of love's name. I am too ugly. He will not notice me. Dawned love wraps itself in mystery. The gloomy street, lately joyous, feels sadness. None of love's lessons lack. The household economy frames the dawn. Fripp, the local word for whatever accompanies bread, from common butter to the most distinguished peach preserve. These young fellows eat neither bread nor fripp. There's something like marriageable girls, says the master. Sugar stands at 6 francs a pound forever in his valuation. Nanon demands 8 bits and is refused at 6. How is your nephew? To sweeten his coffee. With 2 pieces. I'll go without myself. Until feminine dodging wins the galette. The nephew's boots smell good enough to eat and provoke the lesson. Do you call it funny to put more money into boots than the man who stands in them is worth? Crows make the best soup in the world, and don't we all live on the dead? We're legacies. Down by the lawyer the poplar arithmetic runs its algebra. 32 feet lost per tree. 12,000 francs a year for 40 years with interest. 2,000 poplars yielding only 50,000. There's a loss. While Crutchett murmurs his fund's counsel, buy soon, 20% in 2 years, and receives will see about that and a newspaper thrust under his eyes. Grandet, walking Eugenie toward the lawyer, meets crooketine early birds. To see something is the whole answer to the notary's matutinal curiosity, who knows by experience there is something to be got by going. The talk reaches the marriage contract. I shall soon have the marriage contract to draw up. Hey, Père Grandet? Before the vow falls, stammering flux of words, he would rather fling his daughter into the lawyer than give her to her cousin. Dazzles the girl with sudden light. Distant hopes bloom tangible as a cluster of flowers. At breakfast he drops the fact like a coin. His father has blown his brains out. Poor young man. Poor indeed. He isn't worth a sou. Nanon, sleeping like the king of the world. Eugenie stops eating. Pity wrings the young heart, and she receives the hungry tigerish look her father throws upon his piles of gold, while Nanon pities the young man sleeping like a wooden shoe without knowing what's coming, and is ordered to hold her tongue. A woman who loves must be able to hide her feelings. Mother and daughter, sharing the child's folly, plot cream and strong Paris coffee and wax candle extravagance while the master is in his fields. If your father finds it out, he is capable of beating us. Well, let him beat us. We will take his blows on our knees. The intimacy is that of the Hungarian sisters bound by a freak of nature, always together in the embrasure of that window. Eugenie arranges her dish of grapes as coquettishly as a practiced housekeeper, piles the pears counted out by her father in a pyramid, listens at her cousin's door to his quiet breathing. Sorrow is watching while he sleeps, and would like to lay under contribution everything in the house. But the keys are in his pocket. Fessard already asked if the Magi had come when Nanon bought wax. The letter's suicide, the gold's caress, the girl's first love, and the miser's lore threat are one chapter's 4 faces of residential duplex. Death and capital, dawn and calculation. Alchemist's laboratory, Grandet's barred office, gold cuddled by night, maps to a twig, sheet iron door. The house's sacred and forbidden chamber. Shore of life, Eugenie's dawn. Illusions flowering, glass, and too ugly. Love wrapping itself in mystery before the cousin wakes. Into the lawyer, Grandet's stammered vow. Daughter flung in the river rather than given to the cousin. Hope blooming from the miser's refusal. Quote, there, no doubt, while Nanon's loud snoring shook the rafters, while the wolf dog watched and yawned in the courtyard, while Madame and Mademoiselle Grandet were quietly sleeping, came the old cooper to cuddle, to con over, to caress and clutch and clasp his gold. Quote, in the pure and monotonous life of young girls there comes a delicious hour when the sun sheds its rays into their soul, when the flowers express their thoughts, when the throbbings of the heart send upward to the brain their fertilizing warmth and melt all thoughts into a vague desire. Day of innocent melancholy and of dulcet joys. Quote, well, old CC comrade, I'll be frank, and TT tell you what you want TT to know. I would rather, do you see FF fling my daughter into the lawyer than Gigi give her to her CC cousin. Ve Eugenius awakening. B story. After 2 hours thought and care, 20 jump from work to see if coffee boils or to hear the cousin dressing. Eugenie prepares a simple breakfast that departs alarmingly from inveterate customs. Table near the fire, armchair before his plate, fruit, egg cup, white wine, bread, sugar heaped in a saucer. Midday in this house is taken standing, bread, fruit, or butter, glass of wine. She trembles at the mere thought of her father's look, glances at the clock. Madame will take it all upon herself. Eugenie cannot repress a tear. She has never loved her mother enough. Charles descends at 11, true Parisian. Dandyism, as if in a net chateau, smiling, courteous manner that makes Eugenie's heart beat with mournful joy. He has taken the destruction of his castles in Anjou as a joke. He never breakfasts before midday, yet fared so badly on the journey that he sits. He drops into the easy chair as a pretty woman falls upon a sofa. His Breguet watch declares 11 o'clock early. The promised partridge dies and a fresh egg's in the shell. And he pays Eugenie the compliment that sets her heart beating without understanding it. In full dress at the opera, you would make the men commit the mortal sin of envy. His creed of the moment is charming. I abhor ridicule. It withers the heart. In Paris they say he has a good heart when they mean he is stupid as a rhinoceros. But I am rich, and ridicule respects me. Presentiments of evil are almost always justified. The well-known knock sounds. There is Papa. Saucer and egg cup vanish. Madame sits up like a frightened hare. The master's keen eye thrown upon table, and Charles sees the whole thing. Ha! Ha! So you have been making a feast for your nephew. Very good indeed. When the cat's away, the mice will play. Feast, thinks Charles, incapable of suspecting the rules and customs of the household. The sugar interrogation is a whisper that turns Madame pale 3 steps forward. Eugenie replaces the saucer, looking calmly at her father. The Parisian woman who held a silken ladder with her feeble arms to facilitate her lover's flight showed no greater courage, while the poor helot comes forward with a piteous look, cuts her bread, takes a pear. Taste my preserves, Papa. If no one stops them, they will pillage Saumur for you, nephew. Then the white hands. I am sorry to see those white hands, nephew. A pear made to pick up silver pieces, brought up to put your feet in the kid out of which we make the purses we keep our money in. The knife blade closes with a snap. My cousin, take courage, strikes terror as the two go out to the garden. Grandet walks the nephew silently ahead. Gravel crunching. He is not troubled to tell of the father's death. Fathers die before children, but seeks a formula to soften "you are absolutely without means," in which all life's misfortunes are summed. 3 circuits of the little garden. Charles notices with minute attention box borders, yellow leaves fluttering, dilapidated walls, gnarled fruit trees. Picturesque details destined to remain forever in memory, blending by the mnemonics that belong exclusively to the passions with this solemn hour. It is very fine weather, very warm. Bad news. Your father is ill. Then why am I here? Order post horses. Horses and carriages are useless. The borrowed newspaper is thrust under his eyes. Still a child. At an age when feelings were no mask, he bursts into tears. That's good, thinks Grandet. His eyes frighten me. He'll be all right if he weeps. And the sobs resound horribly against the dreary walls while the 3 women weep too, for tears are as contagious as laughter. The truth lands. Charles utters a heart-rending cry, hides his face. Leave me. My God, forgive my father, for he must have suffered sorely. Virgin grief, sincere without reasoning or afterthought. Eugenie and her mother comprehend and obey the sign to leave him. The first burst must have its way, says Grandet, re-entering. That young man is good for nothing. His head is more taken up with the dead than with his money. Eugenie shudders at her father's comment on the most sacred of all griefs. From that moment, she begins to judge him. The definition follows. To fail is to commit a theft which the law unfortunately takes under its protection. A highway robber is better than a bankrupt, for the one attacks you and you can defend yourself. Upright and delicate as a flower born in the depths of a forest, knowing nothing of the world's maxims and specious sophisms, she believes the atrocious explanation designedly concealing the distinction between involuntary and intentional failure. A million? A million pieces of 20 sous each. Say a great many new veins, mama. And when a muffled cry more distressing than all the others echoes through the garrets. Nanan, go upstairs and see that he does not kill himself. The two women breathe freely only when the door shuts behind him. Let us go and console him, Mama. Eugenie was sublime. She had become a woman. Upstairs the open door shows him plunged in grief. How he loves his father, she whispers, hopes of a heart that, unknown to itself, has suddenly become passionate. The mother murmurs her warning. Take care. You will love him. Cousin, take courage. Your loss is irreparable. Think only of saving your honor. And with a woman's delicate instinct, she turns his thoughts inward upon himself. Downstairs they sew an hour without a word. Eugenie's furtive, girlish glance has seen the dressing case, pretty trifles, scissors, razors embossed with gold. Gleam of luxury across grief only makes him more interesting, possibly by contrast. Never before has so serious an event touched these two passive beings sunk in solitude stillness. Mama, we must wear mourning for my uncle. Your father will decide that. Eugenie draws stitches with uniform motion that reveals teeming meditation. The first desire of the girl's heart is to share her cousin's mourning. Awakening is not romance alone. It is pity discovering a vocation, luxury lighting grief, and a household of passive souls receiving their first drama. Virgin grief. Charles's cry without afterthought. Sorrow the simple hearts of Eugenie and Madame are fitted to comprehend. Share his mourning. Eugenie's first desire. Love as participation in black, before love dares speak its other names. Quote, in the crucial moments of life, our minds fasten upon the locality where joys or sorrows overwhelm us. Charles noticed with minute attention the box borders of the little garden, the yellow leaves as they fluttered down, the dilapidated walls, the gnarled fruit trees, picturesque details which were destined to remain forever in his memory, blending eternally by the mnemonics that belong exclusively to the passions, with the recollections of this solemn hour. Quote, there was something terribly attractive in the sight of this young sorrow, sincere without reasoning or afterthought. It was a virgin grief which the simple hearts of Eugenie and her mother were fitted to comprehend. Quote, the first desire of the girl's heart was to share her cousin's mourning. 6. Love and secrecy. Fun and games. About 4 o'clock, an abrupt knock strikes Madame Grandet's heart. The master enters joyously, rubs gloves against epidermis tanned like Russia leather, and, without stuttering, escapes his secret. I've trapped them all. Our wine is sold. Dutch and Belgians gone. He walked the marketplace pretending to do nothing. Vineyard owners kept vintages back, intending to wait. He did not hinder them. The Belgian in despair takes the vintage at 200 francs the puncheon, half down, paid in gold. 6 Louis for the wife. In 3 months wines will have fallen. Bitter sarcasm for Saumur grouped in the marketplace. High treason against the wine-growing community. Panic at mere hearing of it would have dropped the price of wines 50% at once. Did you have 1,000 puncheons? Yes, little one. That term applied to his daughter is the superlative of the old miser's joy. 200,000 pieces of 20 sous. Then, father, you can easily help Charles. Amazement, anger, stupefaction. Belshazzar's mean Teckelupharsin is nothing beside the cold rage of Grandet finding the nephew enshrined in his daughter's heart and calculations. Ever since that dandy put foot in my house, everything goes wrong. Speak of it again, and I send you to the Abbaye de Noyers with Nanan, no later than tomorrow. Told that the nephew weeps for his father, Grandet finds no word. After all, he was a father, makes two turns up the room, hurries to his den, and figures 900,000 francs amassed by thinning forests and selling poplars beside the vintage's 200,000. At dinner, mourning is refused. Mourning is in the heart, not in the clothes. Buy yours out of your 6 Louis. Give me a hat band. Eugenie's generous instincts, slumbering so long and newly awakened, are galled at every turn, and the master twirls his thumbs 4 hours over calculations that will astonish Saumur on the morrow. The town rings with the trick. The wine-growers fulminate imprecations at Agrassen's while Nanon spins. "We don't waste our tongues," she says, showing teeth large and white as peeled almonds, and the answer sails 8 millions in 3 years along a sheet of gold. Nothing should be wasted. Misers have no belief in a future life. The present is their all in all. When he enters his wife's chamber, and she trembles over her prayers, "The devil take your good God." Balzac lights the epic with that growl. 20% crotchet assures from funds quoted at 70 temps him on the newspaper margin that reports his brother's death. He figures while hearing the nephew's moans without listening. The goodnight visit inspects the attic. "Weep, that's natural. A father is a father. Will you have a little glass of wine?" Offered as tea is offered in China. Then the discovery, a wax candle. How the devil did they filch a wax candle? The spendthrifts would tear down the ceilings of my house to boil the fellow's eggs. Mother and daughter slip back and burrow in their beds with the celerity of frightened mice, and the poor woman goes to sleep like a schoolboy who has not learned his lessons. "Tomorrow I will tell him it was I," whispers Eugenie, kissing her mother's brow. "Leave me to manage it. He cannot eat me." 8%. In 2 years, 1,500,000 francs drawn in good gold. Well, where's my nephew? He wants nothing to eat. The women's conspiracy continues. Eugenie enters Charles's chamber. One event for this poor, solitary girl. Are there not thoughts and actions in the life of love, which to certain souls bear the full meaning of the holiest espousals? The night watch precedes it. Eugenie wakes at intervals to listen, dreams him fainting from hunger, hears a startling cry toward morning, and runs in the dawning light to find the candle burned to the socket and Charles asleep, dressed, in the armchair, dreaming as men dream on an empty stomach, his eyes swollen with weeping that seems to well forth tears even in sleep. "Pardon me, my cousin, there are hearts who hear you." She escapes ashamed and happy. Innocence alone can dare be so bold. Once enlightened, virtue makes her calculations as well as vice. What will he think of me? He will think that I love him. That was what she most wished him to think. An honest love has its own prescience, and knows that love begets love. Then mother and daughter wait by the window with that cruel anxiety which freezes or warms, shrivels or dilates, when a scene is feared, a feeling domestic animals possess. Misery has remade the cousin. Charles is no longer the rich, distinguished young man far above her, but a relation plunged into frightful misery. Misery begets equality. Women have this in common with the angels. Suffering humanity belongs to them. They speak with eyes. The fallen dandy sits proudly calm and silent. Her gentle, caressing glance constrains him from sad thoughts into fields of hope and futurity where she loves to hold him at her side. The morning brings unexplained clemency. The lad gives no trouble. So much the better. He won't want a wax candle, because the night hatched the plot. To trick the Parisians, decoy, dupe, snare them, make them go and come and sweat and hope and turn pale, and save a brother's honor without cost of a penny, playing the good brother on the cheapest terms. His good intentions likened to a gambler's interest in a game well played in which he has no stake. The lamb lying peacefully at the feet of God is the emblem of all terrestrial victims. The miser fattens it, folds it, slaughters, cooks, eats, and then despises. The pasture of misers is compounded of money and disdain. Meanwhile, the old staircase grows luminous under Eugenie's feet, young like the love it now serves. The talk through the closed door is an episode in a poem. The coffee poured with the simplicity of real feeling draws tears of gratitude. "Here, Nanon, carry them away." And the eyes of both express one thought. The future was theirs. Vintage gold for the funds. nephew unpaid, daughter's soul already spent. The chapter's duplexity is complete. Market triumph downstairs, holy espousals of pity upstairs. Trap them all. Grandet's vintage sold against the waiting community. Marketplace theater as the miser's joy without stutter. Misery begets equality. Charles fallen from Parisian sphere. Love becoming possible only when gold's hierarchy collapses. Holiest espousals. Entering the cousin's chamber. Provincial girls act bearing marriage's full meaning before any vow is spoken. Quote, "Wife," he said without stuttering, "I've trapped them all. Our wine is sold. The Dutch and the Belgians have gone. Quote, misery begets equality. Women have this in common with the angels. Suffering humanity belongs to them." Quote, what an event for this poor, solitary girl thus to have entered the chamber of a young man. Are there not thoughts and actions in the life of love which to certain souls bear the full meaning of the holiest espousals? 7. The barrel of gold. Midpoint pressure. Saumur is more excited about Grandet's dinner to the Cruchets than about the vintage sales high treason. If the politic old miser had given the dinner from the idea that cost Alcibiades' dog its tail, he might be called a great man. He considers himself superior to a community he can trick on all occasions and pays little heed to what Saumur says. Des Grassins, learning Guillaume's failure and violent death, determined to visit that evening. Commiserate, show friendship, ascertain why the Cruchets were invited. Rival factions circle the bankrupt's brother as they circled the heiress. The dinner itself is a repast of condolence. Grandet grave, Charles silent, Eugenie dumb, until the nephew retires to his long and painful correspondence and the women are dismissed. What we have to talk about will be Latin to you. At table, the stutter returns his instrument. He does not know the tricks of Paris. He belongs to Saumur. Vines, drains, business. He never gives notes, takes many, never signed one, does not understand such things. The stutter, thought in Saumur a natural defect, has its history here. Taken in once by an Israelite who held his hand behind his ear and mangled his meaning until Grandet found himself completing the arguments, being the Jew instead of being Grandet. He lost the only bargain of his life he ever had occasion to complain of and gained the lesson, ending by blessing the teacher. Irritate your antagonist until he forgets his own thoughts in impatience to suggest yours. Now the mischievous expression of a boy inwardly laughing at his master accompanies the humble "why yes." Liquidation is distinguished from failure. When a man fails, he is dishonored, but when he merely liquidates, he remains an honest man. There is honor down here in the provinces. Save your name, and you will be a man, a noble man. Bentham arrives through the ear trumpet of a cupped hand. A note is merchandise, an article of barter which rises and falls. Those Englishmen sometimes talk sense, until 25% emerges, buy up the debts, and legally the estate owes nothing, while in equity, the creditors having sold of their own free will, the estate of the late Grandet is honorably released. Grandet will not bind himself. He who can't. Business is business. No money, no time. This is the first time in my life I have been obliged to think. You are not a lawyer. The notary, fearing for his nephew's dignity, draws him into the embrasure. You have said enough. Let me sail the ship now. You can haul on the braces. Des Grassins offers to go to Paris at the client's expense. Madame signs encouragement could, glances ironically at the chap-fallen crooketines. Having walked over nearly accusing the old man of fratricide, the banker now learns there is but one sad event and cries. Money without honor is a disease. There is honor in the provinces. Thunder, it is sublime. Then sublime things cost dear, answers the goodman, and the words about paying the president's journey expenses are spoken without a stammer. In the corner he confides his real errand. Other fish to fry, wriggling the one. A few thousand francs in the funds while they are at 80. Hush, say nothing to the Cruchets, that'll annoy them. The cooper buys his funds. The dinner is Alcibiades' diversion and creditor theater at once. Morning gossip of the port. Exchange on gold doubled from military preparations at Nantes. Speculators at Angers buy coin. The night departure is staged like a farce. Cornwaller's chariot at 11. No knocking. Police regulations don't allow nocturnal racket, and the neighborhood need not know I'm starting on a journey. Nan and yoked to the goodman under a stout stick slung with a small barrel, like those pair Grandet still makes in his bakehouse, as an amusement for his leisure hours. Holy Virgin, how heavy it is! What a pity that it is only copper sou. A single candle between two staircase rails, pistols refused because what's there to fear for copper sou, and the order, drive fast, Cornwaller. I must get to Angers before 9 o'clock. Eugenie, hearing the snorting of horses, thinks first of fire, then, can my father be carrying off my cousin? And meets her father's vague, unnoticing glance with terror. Grandet borrows farmers' horses, sells gold, brings back treasury notes for the funds, some swollen by the exchange. No one has ever seen a penny in that house filled with gold. Precautions and reticence never relax. Object of the journey remains opaque. And so Muir, told of the magnanimous resolve in 3 houses at once, forgives the morning's treason and lauds a generosity it never thought him capable. Can it be that collective beings, nationalities, peoples, are devoid of memory? The barrel of the title is not only wine. It is capital converted, gold melted into paper, provincial secrecy as fiscal method. Charles's honor is spoken of as something to arrange. Eugenie's love is not invited to the table. Saumur watches the dinner. The miser watches the funds. The doctor of social medicine watches both as one physiology, hospitality as camouflage for the next swallow of Lewis. Alcibiades' dog. The crotchet dinner as diversion. Public gesture whose true purpose is opacity, not friendship. Notes never signed. Grandet's stammered commercial creed. Take paper, never give it. Saumur identity as refusal of Paris tricks. Gold to funds. Nonce exchange doubling. Coins sold, treasury notes bought, 20% dreamed on a brother's death notice. Quote, if the politic old miser had given his dinner from the same idea that cost the dog of Alcibiades his tail, he might perhaps have been called a great man. But the fact is, considering himself superior to a community which he could trick on all occasions, he paid very little heed to what Saumur might say. Quote, hearing in the morning, through the gossip of the port, that exchange on gold had doubled in price in consequence of certain military preparations undertaken at Nantes, the old wine grower, by the simple process of borrowing horses from his farmers, seized the chance of selling his gold and of bringing back in the form of treasury notes the sum he intended to put into the funds, having swelled it considerably by the exchange. 8. Charles departs. Bad guys close and slash all is lost approaching. The father is gone. Silence. Carriage rumbling ceases through the sleeping town. Eugenie hears in her heart, before her ears, a cry from the cousin's chamber. A line of light thin as a saber blade falls on rotten balusters. He suffers. Door ajar. Charles sleeping. Head over armchair, pin fallen nearly to the floor. Oppressed breathing frightens her in. Dozen sealed letters. Ferry carriage makers. Buisson Taylor. Settling affairs to leave France at once. 2 open letters. My dear Annette blinds her. Feet nailed. He loves, he is loved. No hope. Noble honor approaches. She reads anyway. Indies or America. Deadly climates where fortune is sure. Paris cannot be born. Nature and face not made for affronts. Neglect, disdain shown a ruined man. Son of a bankrupt. He needs 100 Louis. Wishes a last kiss for strength. She sees the words everywhere, even on the bricks of the floor, in letters of fire. She takes his head and sets it against the chair back like a child that knows its mother's touch. Kisses the chestnut hair, while a demon shrieks dear Annette. In her ear, for the first time in her life, good and evil struggle together, and passion and curiosity triumph. The letter has grown old in 24 hours. Paris cannot be born. In 10 years, your daughter will be 18, your companion, your spy. Marriage becomes a necessity of my future existence, and breaks off mid-sentence, which Eugenie attributes to weariness. He gives her up. Blessed Virgin, what happiness! The innocent girl walks the enchanted regions bathed in a celestial light shed from her own soul. A woman's errors come almost always from her belief in good. The words "my dear Annette" caress her like the Venite Adoremus repeated by the organ. The diagnosis is colder. Charles loved his father truly, yet was moved far more by paternal goodness than by the goodness of his own heart. A true child of Paris, already an old man under the mask of youth, schooled in a world where to see clear is to believe in nothing, where Annette with her perfumed hand among his curls taught the Campaign Catechism. As long as a man is a minister, adore him. When he falls, help to drag him in the gutter. The grain of gold dropped by his mother beaten thin. In the smithy of Parisian society, inoculated with selfishness whose germs would burst forth when the careless spectator became an actor in the drama of real life. A mere chance, a fatal chance, threw in her way the last effusions of real feeling. She heard, as it were, the last breathings of his conscience. Poor Charles! I did well to read the letter. I have gold. I will give it to him. The thrill of pleasure carries her to the old oak cabinet, a fine specimen of the Renaissance with the royal salamander partly effaced and the red velvet purse inherited from her grandmother. 20 Portugueses of John V, 1725, shining like little suns. 5 Genovines of Genoa that belonged to old Monsieur de la Bertelliere. 3 Spanish quadruples of Philip V given one by Madame Genolet. This dear little canary, this little yellow boy, is worth 98 francs. Keep it, my pretty one. It will be the flower of your treasure. 100 Dutch ducats of 1756. The gold her father valued most of all. Rupees of the great mogul with the sign of the scales and the Virgin, magnificent money precious to the soul of misers. And yesterday's Napoleon, forgotten in the count. Virgin coins, true works of art, whose milled edges and unrubbed letterings Grandet sometimes asked to admire. She thinks only of her cousin, makes out 5,800 francs actual value, nearly 6,000 to collectors, and claps her hands like a happy child forced to spend its overflowing joy in artless movements of the body. Father and daughter have each counted fortune this night. He to sell gold, she to fling hers into the ocean of affection. At the threshold, candle in one hand and purse in the other, she wakes him. I must beg pardon for a wrong I have done you, but God will pardon me if you will help me to wipe it out. I have read those letters. They have made me know your heart, your soul, your plans, your need of a sum. Hush, we must not wake others. See, here are the savings of a poor girl who wants nothing. This morning I was ignorant of the value of money. You have taught it to me. It is but a means, after all. A cousin is almost a brother. You can surely borrow the purse of your sister. He remains silent, never dreaming of refusal. She kneels. I will never rise till you have taken that gold. Until his tears fall upon the hands he catches to keep her from kneeling, and she pours the contents upon the table. Fear nothing. You will be rich. Some day you shall bring it back. Are we not partners? Gift for gift, confidence for confidence. The box his mother gave him is as precious as life itself. If she could rise from her grave, she would herself sell the gold her love lavished on it. But to sell it were sacrilege. Eugenie shall be its guardian. Never did friend commit anything more sacred. The secret spring opens a hidden drawer. 2 portraits, masterpieces of Madame Mirabelle, richly set with pearls. Here is something which to me is worth the whole world. Keep my treasure safely. If I die and your little fortune is lost, this gold and these pearls will repay you. Destroy them at last, so that they may pass into no other hands. Hearing the very words she had just used addressed to herself, she turns on him her first look of loving womanhood, a glance with nearly as much coquetry as inmost depth. Angel of purity! Between us two, money is nothing, never can be anything. Feeling, sentiment, must be all henceforth. At the chamber doors the illusion cracks once. Why am I ruined? What matter? My father is rich, poor child. If that were so, he would never have let my father die. Freudfond, Noyers, vineyards, fields are mere nothing. Yet there, you will keep my treasures, he says, glancing at the cabinet as if to hide his thoughts. Both fell asleep in the same dream. From that moment the youth began to wear roses with his mourning. Next morning Madame finds the pair in the garden, his sadness respected, their souls espoused perhaps before they felt the force of the feelings that bound them. Provincial girl and fallen dandy speak the language of absolute gift. Evening finds Grandet jovial after ratafia. No sooner lips to a glass than empty. Such is life. You can't have and hold. Gold won't circulate and stay in your purse. If not for that, life would be too fine. Nanan offered ratafia. Apothecaries put too much sugar. The miser philosophizes circulation while his daughter has already circulated her. Life's gold into a cousin's voyage. Saber of light on the stairs. Annette's name on the bricks. Portugueses like sons. Dressing case as reliquary. The chapter is the novel's moral vault emptied in a hope. Saber of light. Lined through the chink on rotten balusters. Pity finding Charles before calculation wakes. Ocean of affection. 6,000 francs of rare coin flung against Annette's letter in the Indies. Love spending what avarice hoards. Dressing case reliquary. Mirabelle portraits kept as sacrilege to sell. Gold exchanged for sacred objects. Engagement sealed without crutchet. Quote, at this moment Eugenie heard in her heart before the sound caught her ears, a cry which pierced the partitions and came from her cousin's chamber. A line of light, thin as the blade of a saber, shone through a chink in the door and fell horizontally on the balusters of the rotten staircase. Quote, father and daughter had each counted up their fortune this night, he to sell his gold, Eugenie to fling hers into the ocean of affection. Quote, you have no sooner put your lips to a glass than it is empty. Such is life. You can't have and hold. Gold won't circulate and stay in your purse. If it were not for that, life would be too fine. 9. Waiting and speculations. Break into 3. Next morning's early breakfast makes a picture of genuine domestic intimacy. Grief has drawn Madame, Eugenie, and Charles en rapport. Even Nanan sympathizes without knowing why. The four are one family. The old man, satisfied avarice and certainty of rid of the dandy for little more than journey to Nantes, is nearly indifferent. He leaves the two children free under Madame's eye, implicit confidence in public and religious morality, while he straightens field boundaries, ditches, poplar plantations beside the lawyer. Springtime of love has come for Eugenie. Since the night she gave her treasure, her heart has followed it. Confederates in the same secret, they look with mutual intelligence that sinks to consciousness's depth. Love is our second transformation. Childhood and love were one and the same thing to them. A first passion with all its childlike play, struggling at birth against the gloom of morning and only the more in harmony with the provincial plainness of the gray ruined house. They say the infinite nothings of love on the mossy seat, musing in the calm between house and ramparts like that beneath the arches of a church. Charles comprehends the sanctity of love. Annette had taught him only its stormy troubles. Loves even the house whose customs no longer seem ridiculous. Rises early to talk before the provisions are doled out, and escapes to the garden at the sound of the old man's steps. The small criminality Nanan pretends not to see, giving their innocent love the lively charm of a forbidden joy. Eugenie becomes the Margaret of Goethe before her fall. He had thought such morals impossible in France, real only in the novels of Auguste Lafontaine. She catches happiness as a swimmer seizes the overhanging branch of a willow. He gives Madame a gift she has longed for years, 900 francs worth. She will add the most earnest prayer for travelers. If she dies, Eugenie will keep this treasure for him. The legal preliminaries pass with country solemnity, the deed surrendering his rights in his father's estate. Terrible renunciation, species of domestic apostasy, 2 powers of attorney, a passport, and the Paris mourning clothes supplemented by sale of his useless wardrobe to the tailor of Saumur, which pleases Grandet exceedingly. Now you look like a man prepared to embark and make your fortune. The buttons and thimble scene prices tenderness at 989 francs 75 centimes, advanced in livres. People should wash their dirty linen at home, as Napoleon said, and the uncle's generosity stretches to paying the passage to the Indies. 1,500 francs, Cruchot will lend them, because in valuing the jewels he estimated only the weight of the gold. At the inn doorway, Grandet kisses Charles on both cheeks. Depart poor, return rich. You will find the honor of your father safe. I answer for that myself. I, Grandet, for it will only depend on you two. Charles, not understanding, sheds tears of gratitude on tanned cheeks. Eugenie presses cousin's hand and father's. The notary smiles, alone understanding the sly speech. Honor safe means creditors managed without the uncle's gold. Return rich is the dandy's problem. The farewell is staged entire. The requiem's sung. Nanon in the gold-embroidered robe, and Jeanette cross weeping for the poor dear monsieur going on the seas. Tradesmen on their sills. The 5 days' warning on the walnut bench. Do you love me? I shall wait. Charles, the kiss taken in the darkest end of the passage while Nanon cries, so be it. And the lovers flee to read litanies. Mercy! Now they're saying their prayers. The portraits solemnly installed in the one lockable drawer. The key placed within her bosom. Thine. I am thine forever said twice over. No promise made upon this earth ever pure. Then white handkerchiefs from the quay, until Eugenie can no longer see her lovers. Would that I had the power of God for a single moment. And the coach gone? Goodbye to you. Happily heard by none but Maitre. Cruchot. After departure, the house reverts and does not revert. Eugenie waits. I shall wait, Charles. Repulses a kiss when she sees her father at his window. Runs under the archway. Scarcely knows where she goes. Letters from Paris at breakfast draw Grandet's rebuke when she asks if cousin is satisfied with management. Do I tell you my affairs? Why poke your nose? Let the lad alone. A forestalling, I follows the money to Paris. A certificate of 100,000 francs a year bought at 80 net. The transport of the price, so suspiciously managed that Cruchot credits Nanon. Absent 5 days, putting Freud Fawn to rights. As if the goodman were capable of leaving anything lying about. The seals come off before the creditors. De Grassins and Francois Keller are elected liquidators. Not one creditor proves recalcitrant. Grandet of Saumur will pay, and 9 months bring 47%, paid with scrupulous fidelity and unimpeachable integrity. When arrest is asked for, here it comes, says the old man, throwing the letter into the fire. Patience, my good friends. The creditor, a species of maniac breathing fire one day and amicable the next, is studied like weather, atmospheric variations, some refusing their vouchers. Very good, so much the better. Time, a pretty good devil after all, does its work. By the 5th year, the words payment in full hold the creditors in check, while Grandet laughs in his beard. Those Parisians. And when the funds reach 115, he withdraws 2,400,000 in gold, plus 600,000 of compound interest. Years of waiting begin as provincial vocation. Nanon, brought to see she can pity her young mistress without failing the old master, confides. If she had a man, she'd follow him to hell, exterminate herself. She will die and never know what life is. Old corn oiler round her petticoats for money. Rats smelling the master's cheese. Paying court as they pay court to mamselle. Shrewd, I though big as a steeple. It pleases, but it isn't love. The servant speech is the novel's chorus. Saumur courtship as rat and cheese. Eugenie's wait as the one love that isn't. Between the ledgers, Balzac sets his axiom. Women have more cause for suffering than men. The woman stays at home, face to face with grief, goes down into the abyss, measures it, fills it with tears and prayers, to feel, to love, to suffer, to devote herself. Is not this the sum of woman's life? Her happiness, picked up like nails scattered on a wall, Bossuet's simile, would never fill the hollow of her hand. The house grows suddenly empty. Charles's room is kept as he left it, and Eugenie's beauty takes a new character. Before her cousin came, she was the virgin before the conception. After he went, the virgin mother. She had given birth to love. A map of the world, nailed beside her looking-glass, follows him westward. Art thou well? Dost thou suffer? Dost thou think of me when the star shines upon thee? While mornings pass pensive beneath the walnut tree, and evenings turn gay and dissimulating over the cards. Speculations continue in the fields and funds. The girl's speculation is time itself. Depart poor, return rich. Grandet's sly blessing. Father's honor safe as creditor theater, tears of gratitude misreading the uncle's ledger. I shall wait. Eugenie's vow under the archway. Love as temporal obedience against the window where the miser watches. Rats and cheese. Nanon on corn oiler. Provincial courtship as appetite for money, named so the heroine's weight can stand apart. Quote, "Nephew," said Grandet, in the doorway of the inn from which the coach started, kissing Charles on both cheeks. "Depart poor, return rich. You will find the honor of your father safe." I answer for that myself. I, Grandet, for it will only depend on you two. Quote, "If I had a man for myself, I'd follow him to hell. Yes, I'd exterminate myself for him, but I've none. I shall die and never know what life is. Old corn oiler is always round my petticoats for the sake of my money, just for all the world like the rats who come smelling after the master's cheese and paying court to you. Well, mamselle, it pleases me, but it isn't love. X. Madame Grandet's death. Dark night of the soul. 2 months. Domestic life, once monotonous, now quickened by a secret binding the women. Charles lives beneath grim gray rafters. Night and morning Eugenie opens the dressing case and gazes at her aunt's portrait, finding cousin's features in the mother's face. Sunday, Madame, surprised, admitted to the terrible secret of the exchange. You gave him all. What will you say to your father on New Year's Day when he asks to see your gold? Eyes fixed, mortal terror half a morning. High mass missed from military service. In 3 days, 1819 ends. A bourgeois tragedy begins, without poison or dagger or the spilling of blood, more cruel than all the fabled horrors of the House of Atrides. Its cause is domestic to the point of comedy. For one of the winter sleeves her anxiety left unfinished. A chill seizes Madame mid-sweat during one explosion of her husband's anger. Anticipation of ignominious public death is perhaps less horrible to a condemned criminal than what comes after breakfast to mother and daughter. Tomorrow I will tell him it was I know. He would send you to Noyers. Leave me to manage it. He cannot eat me. I have done right. I repent of nothing. God will protect me. His will be done. The more gleefully the old man talks and eats, the more their hearts shrink. Eugenie has an inward prop, strength through love. Winter 1819 to 1820 among the coldest, snow on roofs. Madame begs a fire, freezing under bedclothes. Eugenie must dress here or take illness. They will wish him Happy New Year beside the hall fire. Da, 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 ha, da, dongue. He is gay with the cooper's song. Desgrassins has sent potato foire truffled, a double Napoleon for Eugenie in the package. He has no gold left, had to let stray pieces go in business. He sings Guy, Lou, Tunneler, forgives the Berteliers. We got their property in the end, and Nanon reports a 6-franc piece, not worn one bit. He is getting soft and improving with time, like your Ratafia. The secret of the joy is arithmetic. 30,000 francs of silver interest arrived. The funds at 89, 12% gained in 2 months, 50,000 every 6 months henceforth without taxes or repairs. 5 years of public securities and a capital of 6 millions, colossal. Saumur watches the barrow of sacks. It's all sous. Silver sous, murmurs the porter. Keep your tongue between your teeth. The old fox hears fast enough in frosty weather. Coming down the staircase, he dreams how to metamorphose Parisian silver into solid gold until the funds reach par. Fatal reverie for Eugenie. Then the demand for the precious metal. Silver and gold live and swarm like men. They come and go and sweat and multiply. Kiss him on the eyelids for telling secrets of the life and death of money. Eugenie rises, turns, looks him in the face. I have not got my gold. He starts erect, like a horse hearing a cannon. By the shears of my father. Whenever he swears that oath the rafters tremble. Madame turns pale. His anger will kill her. You never die in your family. The audit opens with flattery. I work for you. Must have money to be happy. Without money, there's not a particle of happiness. prices the treasure at 5,959 francs plus the morning's Napoleon, 6,000 less one, and pitches the exchange. 6,000 francs in livres, a finer marriage dozen when she weds. Government funds yielding 200 half-year without taxes, repairs, frost, hail, or floods. You ought to kiss me on the eyelids for telling you the secrets of the life and death of money. Craft of love matches craft of avarice. Negative signs, inviolable secret. Have you no secrets? He is head of the family, and this is mine. It must be something bad. It is good, and I cannot tell it to my father. She grows as crafty through love as her father through avarice, reiterating the negative. His voice climbs a crescendo that echoes through the house. It's a theft. Virtuous girls go wrong sometimes, but give their gold. Was I free, yes or no, to do what I would with my own? You are a child, of age, dumbfounded by the logic. He curses, serpent, you and your cousin and your children, then admires in spite of himself. She won't flinch. She's more Grandet than I'm Grandet. The priests tell you to obey me is the last argument. She bows her head, withdraws under a proud look, and hears the key turn in her door. To her chamber, bread and water, Nanan will bring it. She flees to her mother. He climbs like a cat, snow circuit of the garden. Pump it out of her. Women understand that better. Even if she plastered Charles with gold, he is on the high seas. Madame, seeing the frightful movement of the one, changes speech mid-reply to save the child. Night. Nanan in stockinged feet brings hare pâté baked in a saucepan. Cornoiler's gift, bought lard and spices from her 6 francs. Mistress of her own money, shall not live on dry bread. Poor Nanan. The chapter titled for the mother's death begins the killing. Cold, confinement. 1, and a servant's contraband tenderness. The actual extinguishing will finish what New Year's Day began. Balzac has already shown the instrument. Life and death of money. Grandet's New Year's sermon. Gold that swarms, sweats, multiplies, spoken while demanding the daughter's emptied purse. By the shears of my father, the oath that trembles rafters, avarice's sacred swear against the child's, I have not got my gold. Bread and water, confinement as domestic Bastille. Nanan's hare pâté, the only counter-sacrament. Quote, I have not got my gold. You have not got your gold, cried Grandet, starting up erect, like a horse that hears a cannon fired beside him. No, I have not got it. You are mistaken, Eugenie. No, by the shears of my father. Quote, yes, silver and gold live and swarm like men. They come and go and sweat and multiply. Quote, see, mademoiselle, said the good soul. Cornoiler gave me a hare. You eat so little that this pâté will last you full a week. In such frosty weather it won't spoil. You shan't live on dry bread. I'm determined. It isn't wholesome. 11. The heiress. Break into 3/aftermath. For several months, the wine grower comes to his wife's room at all hours without uttering his daughter's name, seeing her, or alluding to her. Madame does not leave her chamber and daily grows worse. Nothing softens him. Unmoved, harsh, cold as granite. He ceases to stutter, talks less, is more obdurate in business, often mistakes his figures. Something is going on at the Grandets, say Grassinists and Crooketines. Fixed question of Saumur's evening parties. The town outlaws him, pointed out and muttered at in the streets, excommunicated by opinion, while the heiress under lock bears the impress of angelic gentleness and melancholy for the widow's curious eyes. Her imprisonment and her father's condemnation are as nothing to her. Had she not the map of the world, the little bench, the garden, the angle of the wall, the honey love's kisses left upon her lips? One deep grief silences all others. The mother perishing day by day, made beautiful by the light shining from inner to outer as she approaches the tomb. Where is he? Why does he not write? Let's think about him, mother, but not speak of him. You are ill, you before all men him. To her husband's morning visits, she speaks with angelic sweetness and the firmness of a woman to whom approaching death lends courage she had lacked in life. Take back your daughter. Be a Christian, a husband, and a father, and Grandet sits with the air of a man who sees the rain coming and quietly gets under the shelter of a gateway till it is over, answering at last, "You are rather pale today, my poor wife. May God pardon you, even as I pardon you." Since her illness, he has not dared his terrible ta, 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 ta. The angel's ugliness decreases, driven out by the ineffable expression of moral qualities. She was all soul, and though his nature is of iron, an imperturbable silence saves his dignity and rules his conduct. Eugenie goes to Mass with Nanon. If Madame de Grassin speaks, she answers gently. Pious and pure before God, conscience and love help her suffer the Father's wrath. She tastes still the honey love's kisses left. Madame, failing through prayers to reconcile them, confides to the Cruchets. "Keep a girl of 23 on bread and water," cries Monsieur de Bonfons. Wrongful cruelty, she can contest. Eugenie herself ends the deputation with a proud step. "My father is master in his own house. While I live under his roof, I am bound to obey him. He is accountable to God only. To blame my father is to attack our family honor." The notary, struck with the beauty, seclusion, melancholy, and love have stamped upon her face, answers that the best way to stop rumor is to procure her liberty. Cruchet finds Grandet on the garden bench watching his daughter. The town talks. A man's house is his castle. Yes, and a man may kill himself, or, worse, his daughter. Then the notary's true weapon. "Do you call 6,000 francs a mere nothing? Do you know what the inventory of your wife's property will cost if Eugenie demands the division? 2, 3, 4,000, auction to get actual value. Unless you are on good terms. By the shears of my father." Grandet turns pale, sits. "We will see about it, Cruchet. Show me the law. I must see the law. Then it is true. I am robbed, betrayed, killed, destroyed by my own daughter. Why do we have children? Luckily, she's a Bertelier. She has not a month to live. The remedy is surrender of the mother's estate, and the notary confesses the advice runs against his own interests. What does he live by, if not liquidations, inventories, divisions? The funds at 99 complete the conversion. Grandet throws 10 silver pieces on the bed. "This is our wedding day, wife. 60 francs for your altar at the fête due. Hurrah, for happiness!" Kisses her forehead, and disappears toward the vineyards before the mother can cry that he has forgiven. Forgivenis arrives as fiscal calculation. Is there no mercy in your house when you refuse to forgive your daughter? Da. We'll see about that. Mother flushes with joy. "Kiss your father. He forgives you." But he has disappeared toward the vineyards, ordering confused ideas. He has entered his 76th year. Avarice increases as persistent passions increase at a certain age. The monomania is named. Sight and possession of gold have become his one symbol. To part with control of the smallest fraction at his wife's death seems against nature. "An inventory would be cutting my throat," he cries aloud in a field where he pretends to examine a vine. He resolves to unbend, pet and coax Eugenie, and die regally holding the reins of his millions while breath remains. Reconciliation is the avoidance of auction fees. In October 1822, Madame's virtues, angelic patience, love for her daughter finds special expression. She passes without a murmur, fragile as autumn foliage, the radiance of heaven shining through her as the sun strikes athwart withering leaves and gilds them. A death worthy of her life, a Christian death. And is not that sublime? Lamb without spot. She goes to heaven regretting only the sweet companion of her cold, dreary life. Last glance prophesies a destiny of sorrows. She shrank from leaving her ewe lamb, white as herself, alone in a selfish world that sought to strip her fleece and grasp her treasures. "My child, there is no happiness except in heaven. You will know it some day." The heiress inherits first a prophecy, then, after inventory craft, the earth her mother feared. Inventory threat. Cruchet's 4,000 franc auction specter. Forgiveness engineered as cheaper than division. Lamb without spot. Madame's October death. Ewe lamb left to a world that strips fleece. Heaven named as the only happiness. Granite father. Months without the daughter's name. Cold as rock until ledger fear softens the mouth to "we'll see." Hey, my old friend, do you know what the inventory of your wife's property will cost if Eugenie demands the division? How much? 2, 3, for 1,000 francs, perhaps. The property would have to be put up at auction and sold to get at its actual value. Quote, Lamb without spot, she went to heaven, regretting only the sweet companion of her cold and dreary life, for whom her last glance seemed to prophesy a destiny of sorrows. She shrank from leaving her ewe lamb, white as herself, alone in the midst of a selfish world that sought to strip her of her fleece and grasp her treasures. My child, she said as she expired, there is no happiness except in heaven. You will know it someday. 12 millions. Waiting is vocation/father's end. On the morrow of the death, Eugenie feels new attachment to the house where she was born, suffered, and lost her mother. Window and chair on casters bring tears. She thinks she mistook her father's heart when she becomes object of his tenderest cares. Armed to breakfast, eyes almost kind for hours, brooding as though she were gold. He trembles so often before her that Nanon and Croquetine's fear faculties giving way. Morning dinner. Cruchot alone knows the secret. The settlement scene prices filial love. Sign away your mother's estate, and trust me, I will pay you monthly the good round sum of 100 francs, in livres, when the notary protests she is despoiling herself without guarantee. Good heavens! What is all that to me? Go, my good child, you restore your father's life, but you only return to him that which he gave you. We are quits. This is how business should be done. Life is a business. The next morning she signs the papers completing her own spoliation. At year's end, not one sou of the pledged 100 having appeared, he colors and pays in Charles's jewels. Before long you'll get all his gewgaws, delighted to speculate on his daughter's feelings. Then the long initiation into landed property, Freud fond errands, vintages turned to sacks of gold and silver in the hiding place. For 2 years, he makes her order meals in his presence and receive rents, teaching the names and remunerative capacity of each farm, until his methods turn into settled habits of her own, and she is installed mistress of the house. 5 years pass with the automatic regularity of clockwork. Her only society the 3 Cruchots and their friends, who teach her whist and come every night. When paralysis strikes at 82, the death offers no contrast to the life. Rolled to a spot between chimney and secret room door, he asks explanation of every noise, hears the watchdog yawning in the courtyard, wakes from apparent stupor at the hour rents fall due, has his daughter open the inner room and watch her stack the bags, then takes the key back into his waistcoat pocket and fingers it from time to time. The notary, sure the heiress must marry the president if Charles does not. Return, redoubles his errands, and turns everything into gold and silver for the sacks. For 7 years her passion invades everything. Treasuries are not the millions rolling up, but Charles's dressing case, portraits above the bed, jewels recovered and spread on wool. She waits, believing herself beloved. Nanon marries Cornoiller, keeper of the estates. Madame Cornoiller, at 59, looks 40, strong features resisting time. 1827. Infirmities force further secrets. Recourse to Maitre Cruchot's integrity. Toward year's end, 82, paralysis. Dr. Bergeron gives him up. Eugenie clasps this last living link. To loving women love is the whole of life. Charles is not there. The father is. He draws the coverings close. Put them away. Lock them up, for fear they should be stolen. And are they there? Adds only a panic note. His last words prove that Christianity must always be the religion of misers. Take care of the gold. Put gold before me. She spreads coins. He sits hours with eyes fixed like a child first seeing, distressful smile flickering. It warms me. Last sacraments. Sightless eyes kindle at cross, candlesticks, silver holy water vessel, when moves for the last time. Priest puts silver gilt crucifix to his lips to kiss the Christ. He makes a frightful gesture as if to seize it. That last effort costs his life. He calls Eugenie, whom he does not see though she kneels bathing with tears his stiffening hand. My father, bless me. Take care of it all. You will render me an account yonder. Inheritance. Land of the arrondissement. 6 millions in fund bought at 60, now 76. 2 millions in gold coin. 100,000 in silver crowns. Interest still to collect, 17 millions. Where is my cousin? Was her one thought. Nanan, Providence, humble friend, sole being who loves her for herself, receives 1,200 francs of annuity and marries corn oiler within the month. Fast colors, say the tradesmen, quite likely to have children. 3 dozen silver forks as wedding present, and 4 servants whose devotion is unbounded, the farmers perceiving no change. At 30, Eugenie knows none of the joys of life. Wealth is neither power nor consolation. Her heart and the gospel teach her 2 worlds, and she bathes in both. Her real treasury's the dressing case, the portraits above the bed, the aunt's thimble worn religiously over a Penelope's web embroidery begun to hold the gold so rich in memories. Alone with Nanan by the vacant hall's fireplace, mother's chair, cousin's glass, all memory. 7 years without one letter. Madame de Grassins pushes Marquis de Froidfond. 50, widower, children, but Marquis, Père Grandet intended to graft himself upon that stock. The Croquetine court, meanwhile, sings its praises every evening. Flattery means self-interest. The president dressed in youthful fashions, bamboo cane, white cravat, and pleated frill, giving a family resemblance to the race of turkeys, addressing our dear Eugenie. His daily bouquet flourishing in a vase until Madame Cornoiler throws it into a courtyard corner when the visitors depart. The doctor's last autopsy of the miser is complete. Gold warmed him. The crucifix was seized as Louis. The blessing was an audit in heaven. It warms me. Coin spread before dying eyes. Beatitude of metal where a father's blessing should be. Seize the crucifix. Last gesture at silver gilt Christ. Avarice mistaking sacrament for specie. Effort that kills. 17 millions, schedule handed in. And the one thought still, where is my cousin? Quote, when the priest put the crucifix of silver gilt to his lips, that he might kiss the Christ, he made a frightful gesture, as if to seize it, and that last effort cost him his life. My father, bless me, she entreated. Take care of it all. You will render me an account yonder. Quote, the sum total of her property reached 17 millions. Where is my cousin? Was her one thought. Nanan, said Eugenie, one night, as she was going to bed. How is it that in 7 years he has never once written to me? 13. Charles's letter. All is lost. While Saumur waits, Charles makes fortune in the Indies. Outfit sells. $6,000 realized. Crossing the line brushes cobwebs from his brain. Best means of attaining fortune in tropics, as in Europe, is to buy and sell men. Coast of Africa. Negroes. Traffic in human flesh with other merchandise. Activity leaving no leisure. Desire to reappear in Paris with prestige of large fortune. Jostling with men through many lands, his ideas turn skeptical. What was crime in one country is virtue in another. His heart grows cold, contracts, dries up. The blood of the Grandets does not fail its destiny. He sells Chinamen, Negroes, birds' nests, children, artists, practices usury on a large scale, buys pirate captures at St. Thomas for a song. The pure face of Eugenie rides the first voyage like the virgin Spanish mariners fastened to their masts. Then women of every kind, orgies and adventures. Efface cousin, Saumur, the bench, the kiss snatched in the dark passage. The uncle becomes an old dog who filches jewels, and Eugenie survives only in his accounts, a creditor for 6,000 francs. As Charles Shepherd, the pseudonym frees him to be indefatigable, bold, grasping, making haste to have done with villainy that he may spend the rest of his life as an honest man. He lands at Bordeaux in 1827 with 1,900,000 francs in gold dust and the D'Aubrians aboard. Last capital dead before 1789, income 20,000, and a daughter like her namesake, the insect, disdainful mouth, sallow nose reddening after meals, whom her mother has upholstered with pads and high pressure corsets into a presentable heiress. The bargain is struck on the brig. a royal ordinance, the name and arms of Debrian, Captal de Buck, gentleman of the bedchamber, 2 families in 1 hotel at 100,000 a year, and Charles imagines himself anchored in the Faubourg Saint-Germain under shelter of Mathilde's purple nose. He meets the Debrians, old man who married fashion with West India fortune, gone to sell property, returning with family to Charles X court. Annette, true woman of the world, advises the marriage, promises support for ambition, enchanted to fasten an ugly, uninteresting girl on Charles whose bronze complexion and decided manners attract. Diamonds for Mademoiselle Debrian's corbel, plate and jewelry over 200,000. He receives de Grassins, unrecognized, with impertinence of a fashion who has killed 4 men in as many Indies duels. Cold reply about father's debts, he half understands. My father's affairs are not mine. When a man has an income of 100,000 francs, his father has never failed, and de Grassins is edged politely to the door. Des Grassins writes Madame of the return and month in Paris. Of 300,000 still required. Of insolence. The postman, Mademoiselle, a letter. Is it the one you expected? Words ring from wall to wall. My dear cousin, no longer Eugenie. You once said thou. Success of enterprise. She brought luck, back rich. Followed uncle's advice. Deaths learned from de Grassins. Course of nature, we must succeed them. Trust she is consoled. Day of illusions gone. Child left. Man returned. Both free. Nothing hinders early hopes, but loyalty must hide nothing. Little wooden seat where they vowed forever. Passage, Grey Hall. Attic, night of delicate kindness. 9 o'clock clouds, he cannot betray so true a friendship. Alliance proposed, satisfying all ideas of matrimony. Love in marriage is a delusion. Obeys social laws and conventional demands. Differences of customs, education, habits not in keeping with Parisian life or the future he has marked. He will keep household on stately footing, receive company, live in the world. He remembers she loves quiet. Income 80,000. Marriage in Aubrian brings title. Gentleman of the bedchamber, brilliant position. He does not love Mademoiselle Debrian, but secures children's social rank. Monarchical principles daily more in favor. Son, as Marquis with entailed 40,000. The signature is hummed to the air of non-Pew Andre, thunder. That's doing it handsomely. And the postscript sends the dressing case by the diligence to the Hotel Debrian, a thing for which I would have laid down my life. Terrible and utter disaster. The ship goes down, leaving not a spar, not a plank, on the vast ocean of hope. Some women tear the rival from the lover's arms and rush to the scaffold. Fine, for the motive awes justice, but others bow their heads and suffer in silence, dying resigned, weeping, forgiving, praying, recollecting till their last breath. This is love, true love, the love of angels, the proud love which lives upon its anguish and dies of it. Eugenie measures destiny with her mother's prophetic eyes. Nothing left. Unfold wings, stretch to skies, live in prayer until deliverance. My mother was right. Suffer and die. The slave trader's letter is the novel's moral bankruptcy filing. Saumur Saint reads it in the garden where gravel once crunched under Grandet's confession of another death. Buy and sell men. Charles's tropical method. Cobwebs brushed. Human flesh as merchandise. Paris prestige as end. Love in marriage is a delusion. The letter's doctrine. Aubrian title against the wooden seats forever. Suffer and die. Eugenie's acceptance of the mother's prophecy. Prayer as only remaining estate. Quote, crossing the line had brushed a good many cobwebs out of his brain. He perceived that the best means of attaining fortune in tropical regions, as well as in Europe, was to buy and sell men. He went to the coast of Africa and bought Negroes, combining his traffic in human flesh with that of other merchandise equally advantageous to his interests. Quote, love in marriage is a delusion. My present experience warns me that in marrying we are bound to obey all social laws and meet the conventional demands of the world. I will admit to you, my dear cousin, that I do not love Mademoiselle Debrian, but in marrying her, I secure to my children a social rank whose advantages will one day be incalculable. Quote, Eugenie, remembering that prophetic death, that prophetic life, measured with one glance her own destiny. Nothing was left for her. She could only unfold her wings, stretch upward to the skies, and live in prayer until the day of her deliverance. My mother was right, she said, weeping. Suffer and die. 14. The Rich Widow. Final. Eugenie returns slowly from garden, avoids the corridor. Cousin's memory lives in Grey Hall, chimney piece saucer, old Sèvres sugar bowl of breakfasts. Solemn day. The cure, related to crotchets, therefore Bonfon's interest, comes not for 1,000 francs to the poor, but, urged by the abbé, to speak from a purely religious point of view of marriage's duty for a woman in her position. 2 paths. Leave the world, or obey its laws. Earthly or heavenly destiny. A husband is useful. Preserve what God bestowed. Precious lamb of the flock. The casuistry opens. My only refuge is in the church. Her bosom is large enough to hold all human woe, and the pastor's counter is brutal in its mildness. Marriage is life. The veil is death. Yes, death, a quick death, comes with dreadful eagerness. To bury herself in a convent would be selfishness. To remain an old made a failure in duty. Madame de Grassins arrives incited by vengeance, and the news lands twice. A month in Paris already, the band's published. He wrote to me after that. The thought is not concluded. She does not cry out, as a Parisian woman would, the villain, but contempt is none the less present in her mind. And from this day she assumes the impassible countenance for which her father was remarkable. The letter is returned unfinished with an I thank you. The check for 8,000 is produced. You have the voice and manner of your deceased father. And Eugenie spends the day in her father's secret room before appearing under a smiling front that hides misery behind a veil of courtesy. She asks with noble composure, would it be a sin to remain a virgin after marriage? Sanchez e matrimonio temaro. Madame de Grassins appears with news of Charles's insolence and Aubryan collapse. The Marquis will never give his daughter to a bankrupt son. 1,200,000 legitimately owing. You will declare the father bankrupt. Old crocodile Grandet's word. Nanon produces Charles's check for 8,000 to Madame de Grassins. You have the voice and manner of your deceased father. President de Bonfonds falls at the rich heiress's feet to be your slave. Her terms are dictated with noble composure. Swear to leave me free during my whole life, claiming none of the rights marriage gives over me. Friendship is the only sentiment I can give a husband, and here are 1,500,000 francs. Go to Paris instantly. Pay my uncle's creditors in full with interest at 5%. Obtain legal receipts before a notary. Take them, with this letter, to my cousin Grandet. On your return, I will keep my word. He makes haste, lest time reconcile the cousins. Left alone, Eugenie bursts into tears. All was over. In Paris the creditors, every one punctual, are paid with interest, a remarkable event in the commerce of the day, and the old Marquis's ultimatum collapses. No daughter for a bankrupt son. Eugenie's letter closes the account gently. Be happy according to the social conventions to which you have sacrificed our love. To make your happiness complete, I can only offer you your father's honor. The president announces both marriages at once and delivers the countershot. She had about 19 millions 4 days ago. She is only 17 today. Charles, thunderstruck, recovers. We can push each other's fortunes, and receives the dressing case into his own hands, muttering of 6 inches of iron. She pays the father's debts that Charles would not. Marries without giving her body. Virgin after marriage as case of conscience. Contract a current crotchet. Husband and wife give each other, if no children, entire property without inventory. Bonfonds abolishes crotchet, hankers after peerage, Chamber of Deputies. Dies 8 days after election as deputy of Saumur. God who sees all and never strikes, amiss punishes sordid calculations and legal cleverness. The contract a current crotchet. Entire property reciprocally gifted in case of no children. Dispensing even with the inventory. explains the profound respect he always testified for the wishes, above all the solitude, of Madame de Bonfons. Women blame her barrenness. Why not give him an heir in his position? While Eugenie knows well that he desired her death and pities him, Providence avenged her. To give life to a child would give death to his hopes. God thus flings piles of gold upon this prisoner to whom gold is a matter of indifference, who longs for heaven, succoring the unfortunate in secret. Widow at 36, still beautiful with beauty of nearly 40. White, placid, calm face, gentle voice, simple manners, noblest qualities of sorrow, saintliness of one who has not been happy. She keeps her father's fire calendar and her mother's dress. The house without sun, without warmth, always in shadow, is an image of her life. The hand of this woman stanches secret wounds in many families, and the grandeur of her soul redeems the narrowness of her education. Pious and charitable institutions, hospital for old age, Christian schools, public library richly endowed, churches embellished, testimony against charge of avarice. Sometimes ironically spoken of as Mademoiselle. That noble heart, beating only with tenderest emotions, has been from first to last subjected to calculations of human selfishness. Money has cast its frigid influence upon that hallowed life and taught distrust of feelings to a woman who is all feeling. "I have none but you to love me," she says to Nanon. The human comedy closes the provincial case. 17 millions, a paid debt, a virgin marriage, a dead deputy, and a saint who distrusts feeling because gold taught her the lesson Saumur's cold houses stated on page 1. Virgin after marriage. Eugenie's case of conscience. Body kept as the one capital Charles and Bonfons cannot discount. Receipts to Charles. Bonfons as messenger of paid debts and farewell. Marriage bought with the cousin's honor restored in paper. Frigid influence. Balzac's last diagnosis. Money teaching distrust to a woman who is all feeling. Nanon, the only remaining love. Quote, "When you obtain the receipts, monsieur," she resumed, with a cold glance, "you will take them with all the other papers to my cousin Grandet, and you will give him this letter. On your return, I will keep my word." Quote, Madame de Bonfons, sometimes ironically spoken of as Mademoiselle, inspires for the most part reverential respect, and yet that noble heart, beating only with tenderest emotions, has been, from first to last, subjected to the calculations of human selfishness. Money has cast its frigid influence upon that hallowed life and taught distrust of feelings to a woman who is all feeling. Quote, "I have none but you to love me," she says to Nanon. Character, theme, and symbolism deep dive. Character arcs. Eugenie Grandet is the novel's hallowed life and its experimental subject. Cloistered under one candle and 13 years of birthday gold, she awakens into pity, flings 6,000 francs of rare coin into the ocean of affection, waits 7 years under gray rafters, pays the cousin's father's debts he will not pay, marries Bonfons as virgin, and ends as Madame de Bonfons, ironically called Mademoiselle, Saint of Saumur, whose only remaining love is Nanon. Her arc is not toward happiness, but toward distrust of feeling taught by money's frigid influence. The woman who is all feeling learning the cold house's lesson. Felix Grandet, Père Grandet, is avarice as physiology, tiger and boa, stutter as instrument, funds player who never signs notes, Freud fawn gullet, night laboratory of Caress Lewis. He forgives only when inventory fees threaten, dies seizing the crucifix as if it were specie, take care of it all. You will render me an account yonder. The miser arcs toward pure metal. Gold warms him. Blessing becomes audit. Charles Grandet is Parisian frivolity converted to tropical predation. Eyeglass and Annette's desk. Virgin grief in the garden, dressing case pledged, the Negroes, and Aubryan title. Love in marriage is a delusion, is his doctrine. Depart poor, return rich becomes depart loved, return insolvent of honor. He arcs from orphan dandy to slave trader, gentleman of the bedchamber. The human comedy's proof that crossing the line brushes more than cobwebs. Madame Grandet is conjugal slavery and lamb without spot. Timid glance, feigned death, New Year terror, October 1822 exit prophesying no happiness except in heaven. She dies, leaving an ewe lamb to a world that strips fleece. La Grande Nanon is loyalty as capital earned in muscle. Grenadier face, sexagenarian slavery. Hair pâté against bread and water, cornoiler marriage. Final, I have none but you to love me. Servant as chorus and last human warmth. President de Bonfons Crutchet is the successful crooketine. Greenhouse bouquets, wrongful cruelty legalism. Slave at the heiress's feet. Marriage contract without inventory. Deputy's death 8 days after election. God's striking sordid calculation. Technical themes. Money as physiology. Tiger/boa digestion of Lewis. Gold that swarms and sweats and multiplies. Crucifix seized as coin is Balzac's provincial method. Avarice not moral epithet, but bodily function. The metaphor system does diagnostic work, the plot cannot. One in glance, stutter, and deafness are instruments of commerce. I don't know. I cannot. I will not. I will see about it is appetite reduced to algebra. Where a moralist would condemn, the doctor observes, and the observation condemns more deeply. Misery begets equality. Charles fallen into Eugenie's reach. Makes love possible only when gold's hierarchy collapses, then impossible again when fortune returns with worldliness. The theme gives the novel its cruelest engine. Pity is the one currency that levels, and it is priced exactly as high as ruin. Women have this in common with the angels. Suffering humanity belongs to them, which is precisely why society can bank on their unpaid care. Frigid influence on a hallowed life. The novel's last sentence diagnosis. Selfishness is calculations teaching distrust to a woman who is all feeling. Saumur's cold houses fulfilled in the widow's heart. The theme converts plot into verdict. Every gift, weight, and payment was tuition, and the graduate's distinction, mademoiselle, is the market's receipt. Against Père Goriot's hot deathbed, Balzac here shows the cold alternative, consumption without even the warmth of being consumed. Provincial faction as courtship, crooketines and grassinists, momentary alliance against the cousin, Alcibiades' dinner, renders the marriage market as armed diplomacy. Bouquets as siege engines, whist as negotiation, flattery as self-interest by definition. The theme scales. What factions do to Eugenie, Europe's markets do to Charles, and both learn that courtship is logistics. Doctor of social medicine, types before actions. Cooper, heiress, fallen dandy, virgin widow, dissected without sugar plum consolation. The method is announced in the street chapter and never abandoned. Creature and habitat explain each other simultaneously, and the narrator's forensic eye, the historian who pauses to gloss misers, creditors, and the two Marys, keeps diagnosis and compassion in one voice. The recurring universe. Eugenie Grandet is an early proof of the comedy humane's connecting device. Nucingen's ball names the Parisian world Goriot's daughters inhabit. Rodwin the notary's failure recurs across Balzac's Paris. De Grassin's ends a deputy beside Florine the actress. The Grandet name itself splits into Saumur and Paris branches. Characters become known like real acquaintances, little by little. The technique makes every detail hypertextual and founds the series novel on a provincial register of deeds. Symbolism and imagery. Cold houses/window glance. The opening physiognomy. Cloister, moor, ruin, stagnant life peering at unaccustomed steps. The image is the novel's thesis, stated as architecture. Conscience is held in the light outside. Mysteries hidden in plain sight within, and the pale cold glance that will end the book teaching distrust already surveying the street. One candle/Anjou wax. Economy's light regime. Fire permitted November 1st, extinguished March 31st. A yellow Anjou candle mistaken for tallow because no one can suspect magnificence under this roof. When Eugenie buys wax for the cousin, the household's whole constitution is tested by 5 francs. Birthday gold/13 years. Paternal sacrament as numismatic ritual. one curious piece per year, banked toward the marriage dozen. Grandet calls it training the parsimony of his heiress. Love administered in coin, audited on demand. Alchemist's laboratory, barred office through Grandet's bedchamber, sheet iron door, scales for weighing Lewis, profits calculated to a vine and almost to a twig. The sacred chamber of a religion with one sacrament. Its threshold is crossed at last by the daughter who spends a day alone there among her inheritance. Saber of light, a line through the door chink falling horizontally on rotten balusters. Pity finding Charles before calculation wakes. The novel's one image of grace as geometry, thin, angled, and aimed. Portugueses like little sons. 20 coins of John V, 1725, plus genovines, quadruples, ducats, Mogul rupees. Virgin coins, true works of art whose milled edges Grandet admires. Treasure flung into affection's ocean. The one fortune in the book converted without discount. Dressing case / mirror portraits. Reliquary exchange for coin. Guarded 7 years above the bed. Sent back by diligence to the Hotel d'Aubrion. The case holds the novel's counter-economy. What Charles prices as sentiment, Eugenie keeps as sacrament, until his postscript turns even it into freight. Wooden seat / 9 o'clock clouds. Vows furniture in the garden where gravel once crunched under a confession of death. The letter betrays the agreed hour from Paris. Places contract, memory as breach. Crucifix seized, last sacrament mistaken for Lewis. The frightful gesture that cost the old man's life. Avarice's final exegesis of Christianity, the religion of misers, fused in one motion with the blessing as audit. Render me an account yonder. Severus sugar bowl. Breakfast memory kept on the chimney piece after love's departure. The Freud-Fawn basin that once scandalized a birthday, now the relic of an abandoned girl's mornings. Domestic porcelain as the ledger's margin. Virgin marriage. Body as the one capital neither Charles nor Bonfons can discount. Sanchez's de Matrimonio consulted as seriously as the funds. The ironic mademoiselle completes it, created supremely wife and mother, left neither husband nor child nor family. Polyphony and the narrator. No single voice owns Saumur. The historian's forensic eye, pausing to gloss misers, creditors, and the two Marys. Grandet's 4 algebraic sentences and Cooper's song, Nanon's rat and cheese chorus, Crutchet's legalese, Guillaume's dry-eyed letter, Charles's 2 letters, the cure's casuistry, Madame de Grassin's vengeance, and the town's collective verdict spoken in windows and evening parties. Scandal is method. Gossip does the work of courts, and the narrator lets every interest testify. The faction's puns at the stay scene, the tradesman's barrow comments, the women's diagnosis of Madame de Bonfons. Polyphony here means the saint is heard fully and still consumed. Not because the novel refutes her, but because every other voice is also fully armed. Grandet's arithmetic is sound. Bonfons's contract is legal. Charles's doctrine is the world's own. And the reader, like Saumur, must decide whether the woman who is all feeling is the novel's judge or its patient. Critical evaluation. Eugenie Grandet attempts something no earlier novel had dared at this compression, to make a single provincial street carry the whole physiology of money, and its permanent distinction is that the experiment is conducted with comic ferocity rather than sociological gloom. The comedy is structural, not ornamental. The stutter as commercial instrument, Nanon's spike collar, the marriage dozen lore, the president's turkey frill, the stay, Monsieur le President theater that turns a card party into a betrothal. Farce is the machinery by which arithmetic does the work of judgment. The set pieces, the street filed as physiognomy, the Lodo night and 3 tons of Paris, the garden's 3 circuits, the night of dual counting, the New Year audit, the deathbed seizure of the crucifix, stage the whole argument in scenes whose timing never softens the smell of Lewis or the cost of tears. And the design of the ending is the design of the book. No worldly happiness is granted that would turn diagnosis into consolation. The saint graduates precisely because everyone around her liquidates, and Balzac will not pretend otherwise. The costs are real. Charles's Indies decade is dossier rather than drama. Cobwebs brushed, men bought and sold for duels in a paragraph. And readers who want the fall shown rather than filed will feel the compression. The same distance thins Mademoiselle d'Aubrion into an insect with upholstering. A caricature the plot needs more than it earns. The faction machinery shows at the joints. Croquetine and Grassinist alternate so regularly that Saumur can feel like a proof of concept, and the narrator's intrusions, brilliant on misers and creditors, less necessary on woman's destiny, occasionally preempt the scenes they introduce. The moral clarity about the slave trade and the delusion of marital love is almost too cleanly damning. Balzac indicts in ink what he might have let the ledger indict by itself. None of these costs is accidental, but all are real. Against them, no novel had previously made a house's light regime a moral document, a creditor's temperament a meteorology, or a rent descent of paternal gold a complete biography of love. Read beside Père Goriot. The provincial house replaces the Maison Vauquer and cold replaces heat. Goriot dies loved and robbed. Eugenie lives paid and alone, and the twin ending state one law at 2 temperatures. Read beside Cousin Bet. Envy yields to avarice as the consuming will. Read beside King Lear, whose shadow the deathbed audit acknowledges. Grandet is Lear inverted. The kingdom kept, the daughters bought, the storm indoor and perpetual. Read forward. The novel perfects the apparatus, environment as fate, money counted to the sou, the crime scene gaze, that lost illusions, Cousin Bet, and eventually Zola inherit. The truest judgment may be that the book's pressure, not its length, has kept it alive. On every rereading, the sense that Balzac staked his method on whether a reader could watch a saint be educated by Lewis without sentimentalizing either the tuition or the graduate, and that the wager, frigid influence upon that hallowed life, is still being collected. Conclusion. Eugenie Grandet asks whether absolute love can survive an economy that prices everything, and whether a saint can be educated by Lewis without ceasing to be one. Movement by movement, the answer is conducted. Houses diagnose. Factions bid. A suicide letter drops into a Loto night. Gold is counted twice in one night, sold once, given once. 7 years of waiting are audited against a Paris liquidation. New Year's Day imprisons the giver. Inventory fees purchase forgiveness. 17 millions inherit one question. And a letter files the moral bankruptcy that the debts never could. The central diagnosis is that avarice and absolute love are the same appetite at 2 temperatures. The father concentrates every feeling on metal, the daughter on a man, and that a society organized as a marriage market will discount both without distinguishing them. The book's fragile affirmatives must be held against its settlements. Nanon marries and keeps her post. Cornoiller would be hacked in pieces for his mistress. The poor of Saumur receive a hospital, schools, a library. The golden pyx holds the melted jewels for the parish where she prayed for him. Against these stand the endings Balzac refuses to soften. Charles sells men and calls it fortune. Bonfons dies 8 days after his election with the contract fulfilled. The mother's prophecy, suffer and die, is kept to the letter. And the woman created supremely wife and mother has neither husband nor child nor family. What remains is the Sèvres sugar bowl on the chimney piece, and the question the ironic Mademoiselle leaves open, whether Eugenie's virgin widowhood is sainthood or symptom, whether her charity redeems the narrowness or merely endows it, whether the frigid influence was the world's or the experiment's own temperature. The reader must decide to love without limit or to count. The question stands exactly as the cold houses stated it on page 1. Conscience is held in the light, mysteries hidden in plain sight, and the pale, cold glance still surveying the street for the next unaccustomed step. Index of key concepts. Provincial melancholy. The opening physiognomy. Houses whose aspect is cloister, moor, ruin, with the pale, cold glance beyond the window casing. It states the novel's method before its plot. Creature and habitat explain each other simultaneously, and returns at the close as the widow's house without sun or warmth, an image of her life. Tiger and boa, Grandet's commercial physiology. Crouch, lie low, spring, swallow a mass of Lewis, rest like a snake in digestion, impassable, methodical, cold. The Freud fond purchase down the gullet, and the vintage sold against the waiting town are the image operating. Every man in Saumur has felt the rending of the polished steel claws. Crooked teens / Grassinists, the two factions courting the heiress, Medici and Puzzy of Saumur. Their momentary alliance against Charles shows the market's first law, the common enemy. Their resumption shows the second. The prize outlives every rival. Flattery means self-interest. Winding sheet of infamy. Guillaume Grandet's suicide letter. For millions owed, assets at 25%, dry eyes, irrevocable childish curses, a brother charged to be a father, but a good father. Parisian pathology delivered into Saumur's Lodo night. The novel's founding document of bankruptcy as death. Misery begets equality, the axiom that lets a fallen dandy enter an angel's reach. Grief draws the households in rapport, and love becomes possible when gold's hierarchy collapses. Charles's later letter reverses it. Fortune restores hierarchy and revokes love, making the phrase the novel's cruelest law. Alchemist's laboratory, the barred office entered only through Grandet's bedchamber. Scales for weighing Lewis, maps to a twig, sheet iron door, gold cuddled by night while Nanon snores. The sacred chamber of avarice's religion. Eugenie's solitary day, there, after the cure's visit, is its quiet inheritance scene. Ocean of affection. Eugenie's 6,000 francs of rare coin, given against Annette's letter and the Indies. Father and daughter had each counted up their fortune this night. The phrase names the novel's counter-economy. Gift without discount in a world that discounts everything. Depart poor, return rich. Grandet's sly farewell blessing. Your father's honor safe? I answer for it, I, Grandet. Only Crutchet here's the goodbye to you. That follows the coach. Honor means creditors managed without cost, and the dandy's tears misread the ledger he will inherit. By the shears of my father, the oath that makes rafters tremble, sworn at the New Year audit when Eugenie answers, I have not got my gold. Avarice's sacred swear against the daughter's crafty through-love silence. The domestic Bastille of bread and water follows. Inventory threat, Crutchet's weapon. Division of Madame Grandet's estate would cost 2, 3 for 1,000 francs at auction. Forgiveness arrives priced cheaper than justice. We will see about it, Crutchet, and reconciliation is revealed as avoidance of fees. It warms me / sees the crucifix, the deathbed diptych. Coins spread before failing eyes fix them, like a child that begins to see. Then the silver gilt, Christ mistaken for specie, the frightful gesture that costs his life. Blessing becomes audit. Render me an account yonder. Christianity proven the religion of misers. 17 millions, the inheritance schedule. Lands, 6 millions in funds bought at 60, 2 millions in gold, crowns, interest uncollected. Against it one thought only, where's my cousin? The novel's whole exchange rate in a sentence. Love and marriage is a delusion. Charles's Aubryan doctrine, hum to non-più André over a check for 8,000 francs. We owe ourselves to our children, social rank incalculable. The slave trader's letter files the moral bankruptcy the debts never could. Virgin after marriage. Eugenie's case of conscience put to the cure with noble composure. Sanchez consulted by tomorrow. Body kept as the one capital neither suitor can discount, and the marriage contract, a current Crutchet, that respect her solitude unto death. Frigid influence, the last diagnosis. Money casting its chill upon a hallowed life, teaching distrust of feelings to a woman who is all feeling. Fulfillment of the cold houses on page 1. The ironic mademoiselle is its receipt. Reading comprehension questions. How does the opening description of provincial houses, cloister, moor, ruin, cold glance, already diagnose the novel's moral climate before Grandet is named? In what sense is Père Grandet something between a tiger and a boa constrictor? And how does the Freud fond purchase illustrate that physiology? Why do crooketines and Grassinists form a momentary alliance the night Charles arrives? And what does that reveal about Saumur courtship? How does Guillaume Grandet's letter, winding sheet of infamy, bind suicide, bankruptcy, and fraternal protection into one Parisian pathology? What changes when misery begets equality between Charles and Eugenie? And how does Charles's later letter reverse that equality? How do father and daughter each count their fortune the night Eugenie gives her gold? And what duplex meaning does Balzac draw? Why does Grandet forgive Eugenie only after Cruchot prices the inventory of Madame Grandet's property? What does the deathbed gesture toward the silver-gilt crucifix reveal about avarice's last blessing? You will render me an account yonder. How does Charles's traffic in human flesh and his claim that love and marriage is a delusion complete his arc from virgin grief to Aubreyan ambition? In what ways does the ending's frigid influence upon that hallowed life fulfill the dedication's sacred box and the first chapter's cold houses?